Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Levert changing hands. Levert left of the lane, put it off the glass. No, Mobley, ow, on the foul. Levert got sent crashing, no whistle. But Evans said, I'll clean it up.
Celtics by 5 with 122, 121, 120 to go. Holiday, high left-hand dribble against Covington straight away. Holiday puts it between his legs. Push pass for Derek White. Slot drive on the left side. Kick out, open. Tatum, 3. Got it!
53-40. Texas lead 13. Brock Cunningham has it off to Max Hastings, left side. He'll fire an NBA range 3. Why not? Knocks it down. Max with his second three-pointer of this first half. And Texas now leads by 16, its largest margin, at 56-40. The Longhorn lead is 15. Bounce pass Cunningham to Caden Cheddar. Double team. Got rid of it to Hunter on the left side with 10 to shoot. Now to Hunter. Top of the arc. Splits two defenders. Lobs it in, and there's the throwdown by Dylan Mitchell.
Williams over to Tominaga. He's going to pull it. He drains it. Here's another 3 for Tominaga. Lawrence step back jumper. That looked good.
That's what he's got to do right there. That's where his money's going to be.
Williams down to 17. Takeaway for Nebraska to Marcus Lawrence with a flush on the other end.
Rise up to the occasion, young fella.
Good morning.
Not much of a beat drop.
I know.
You were waiting for it.
I was waiting for it. I was like, wait. Oh,
Such a cliffhanger.
It was very anticlimactic. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the H&H Chevrolet stage. I'm Ravi Lulla. That's Andrew Rogers. We're here with you on a Thursday.
It is Thursday.
AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, or as Andrew was just waving to our lovely fans and listeners on Twitter and YouTube. We appreciate everybody tuning in this morning, wherever you're tuning in from. We've got a good show for you here today. At least I think so. We've got lots of coaching stuff to get to. It's that time of year. You know, we talked about earlier in the week. I get a little like kid in a candy store when the coaching rumors start coming out.
This is you shopping for Christmas gifts.
Oh, man. Well, it depends on who it's for. Because a lot of people in my family, very difficult to shop for.
Really?
Yes. So my dad has no hobbies. He is pushing 80.
So he just likes to kind of like sit and watch TV, or
he likes to work. He still works.
Oh, nice.
He just loves working.
What does he do?
He's internet technology, like IT stuff. Computer guy.
Get him a computer broken down. They build it.
We've tried to buy him computers. We've tried to buy him like tablets, laptops, whatever. He's very very content. He just doesn't want much, and which is like a terrific state of mind to be in.
Does he walk or anything like that? Does he?
I mean, he basically, honestly, he works and he goes to Temple. That's about it. Like,
okay, so obviously he's gonna have to be outside. Does he like the cold?
No, I mean, I don't think so.
Get him a jacket that has like the built-in warmers.
Oh, that might be a good idea. We'll see. So my dad's very difficult to shop for. He likes real estate, but it's like, I'm not buying you like
here, Dad, here's a plot of land.
Well, kind of. Yeah, like that's honestly, that would be like the best gift I could give him, probably. But that's basically his only hobby that I'm aware of is looking at houses on the and land on the internet. He's a bit of a it's a strange hobby.
Go on Zillow, look up like the 10 coolest houses and just send it to him and be like, Dad, I had fun looking through these houses. You will too. Merry Christmas.
That's the gift. Is just here's a Zillow link. So he's difficult to shop for. My wife is very difficult to shop for because she has very particular taste. So even if I know, she would like a new purse of a certain brand or whatever, there's like very specific qualifications. And even if I get all the qualifications right, if it doesn't like feel right on her arm, then it's a deal breaker. And it's like, well, I can't do that on my own.
You're over there in the mall.
Yeah, it's like
and you're posing with
our arms are a little bit different sizes, right? So in shoulders, like it may not fit over my shoulder, may be fine for her. So I've got some people in my family that are a bit difficult.
So what you're saying, it's complicated, just like the coaching carousel.
It is. So you would think I would like it, but no, there's a ton of coaching stuff going on. So we're going to get into a bunch of that today. Listen, if you're listening for the next month and a half or so, honestly, might not even be that long. We're way closer to the end of the regular season than I realized for college football. most of this might be wrapped up in like 2-3 weeks. Because like right out, when was Rule hired? Right after Thanksgiving, or right before the Iowa game?
Yep,
was when it got leaked. So, we
officially it was after the Iowa game,
but that's when it was kind of decided unofficially, officially. So I mean, that's like a week away. So I think we might start getting some resolution on these sooner than maybe we think.
You want to be first, right? You don't want to be last.
Well, especially like that's with Texas A&M, which we'll get into that one a little bit later as well. But coming up on the show today, we're going to talk to a bunch of different people. Our normals, our normal guests, of course, Brian Edwards, 8:45. See if we can make a little bit of money. And then our friend from Husker 24/7, Michael Bruntz, at 9. But aside from that, we've got a couple special guests. C.L. Brown is going to talk about college
hoops
basketball. He works for the Courier Journal in Louisville, but he formerly worked for ESPN and The Athletic. So we'll talk to CL in about an hour. And then to wrap up the show, we're going to talk some national college football with Matt Murschel. He is at the Orlando Sentinel, and a lot of good national games this week. Georgia, Tennessee is a big one. Kansas State is a big one as well. So we'll talk to Matt at 9:45 to wrap up the show. But we were talking about kind of some of the rumors going around. Some of them are more than rumors at this point. Obviously, we know that Jimbo Fisher's out.
We know that Hoke's retiring.
Yeah, Hoke's retiring. It seems like we know that Chip Kelly's out.
It would shock me if UCLA wins.
Yeah, and they change.
They're
their
like,
mind.
hey, actually, Chip Kelly's our guy.
Yeah, we've got Zach Arnett out at Mississippi State already. Talking to Adam McClintock earlier in the week, sounded like there was maybe some more that they knew about already that haven't come to fruition. I kind of wonder if one of those he was hinting at was Chip Kelly, because that came out like a day later. But lots of different coaching positions going to be up. McClintock says it's going to be crazier than 2017. If you remember, 2017 was Nebraska, obviously was open. Oregon was open. Florida State was open. I believe Miami was open as well. There were some super high-profile jobs that came open in 2017.
And that was a funny year as well, because if you go down the list of those that were hired in 2017,
it's about over. Chip Kelly was a 2017.
Right. But it's like maybe 3 or 4 guys are still employed after like 25 or 30 were hired in that year. It's crazy to see the turnover rate.
I think the best one left is Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, which he got off to almost as slow of a start as Scott Frost did, but he was able to turn it around in a way that obviously Frost wasn't.
I'm looking up and down the list right now. I got the top 21. I'm going to read off the names here.
Florida was new then. Yep. Dan Mullen got hired in that cycle.
So you have Jimbo Fisher, you have Scott Frost, you have Chip Kelly, who is currently still there. So I'm going to keep him for now.
For like another couple.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe before the show's over.
Right. Dan Mullen, Kevin Sumlin, Willie Taggart, Jeremy Pruitt, Chad Morris, Joe Moorhead.
Oh, yeah, Tennessee was open that cycle, too. Jeez.
Mario Cristobal, who was at Oregon.
Yeah, that's when he went to Oregon, right, because Willie Taggart left for Florida State.
Jonathan Smith, as you said.
Yeah.
So he is the one right now. Well, 1.5.
Technically, Chip. I mean, Jimbo just left, but that's about.
You have Matt Luke at Ole Miss. You have Herm Edwards at Arizona State.
Gone.
You have Josh Heupel, who's now at Tennessee.
Yeah.
He was at UCF.
Left for good reasons, but still gone.
Billy Napier was hired by Louisiana Lafayette.
And then now he's at Florida. So
correct.
Again, gone for good reasons. So
Sonny Dykes, gone for good reasons. Yep. He's at TCU from SMU.
So that's 3 that moved on for positive reasons. So 3 good hires, 4 good hires with Jonathan Smith.
Mike Bloomgren at Rice. Steve Campbell, South Alabama. Sean Lewis, Kent State. Chad Lunsford, Georgia Southern, and Dana Dimmel?
Dimmel. Yep.
UTEP.
Ironically, Sean Lewis was doing well at Kent State, left for Colorado, and then Dion has kind of put him in the doghouse. You have to imagine he's going to move on.
And Dimmel is still at UTEP, by the way.
So in terms of the major programs, you're talking about 4 good hires, and only one of them is still at their current position at the Power 5. Of the Power 5 hirings, only Jonathan Smith is still at his job from 2017.
The top 9 aren't very solidified.
Yeah.
This is the ranking sheet from 1 to 21 that I just read. The top 9 before Mario Cristobal
gone,
which Mario Cristobal we've seen can't win a game and take a knee because he decides he wants to run the football.
He did well at Oregon
and then fumble it away.
Well, sure.
He did.
He was doing well at Oregon, but he has moved on to Miami.
But Jimbo, Frost, Kelly, Mullen, Sumlin, Taggart, Pruitt, Morris, Moorhead, Cristobal. That's your top 10.
Yeah, those are all your Power 5. Well, and even if Matt Luke was a Power 5 as well, he wasn't in the top 10. But the only Power 5 guy that's left from that cycle is Jonathan Smith. Which, if you had asked that question in the moment, he was. Where is Jonathan Smith?
He was 11.
He was 11. Okay. If you had asked in the moment, he would not have even moved the needle in terms of that hiring class, which is kind of why this stuff interests me so much, right? Because you've got some obvious candidates, right? Scott Frost was the obvious and frankly only candidate at Nebraska. There were Dan Mullen had done really well at Mississippi State. He had a background at Florida. That's an obvious hire at Florida. Chip Kelly was coming back from the NFL. People thought he could recapture the Oregon magic. That was a pretty good hire for UCLA. A lot of these guys, Jimbo Fisher was a coup. Pulling him away from Florida State. He was only 3 years removed from a college football playoff, 4 years removed from a national championship at that point, and had only had one bad season. He was a coup for Texas A&M to steal him from Florida State.
And still left Texas A&M in a good spot.
Talent-wise, at least, at the very least. But you look at all these guys, these no-brainers, national championship winners, all of these guys, and the only guy left standing is Jonathan Smith at Oregon State.
Pretty nuts.
Who, by the way, they're awesome. The top 15 team, been very consistent the last few years.
He's not just going to bowl games.
Yeah, no,
he's consistently in the top 25.
He's elevated them to a level that they really haven't been at. You're talking Dennis Erickson at the beginning of late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, you think Oregon State, or when you think of Oregon State, you think baseball.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think
couple
Beaver baseball.
National titles. So they've got 3 straight winning seasons. They won 10 games last year, which is crazy at Oregon State. They're 8-2 this year. Very easily could end up at 10 wins again. Although they've got a tough schedule on the way out also. I think they've got Utah this week, which is another one of those good games. It's either Utah or Washington. I can't remember which.
And Kyle Whittingham is another guy that keep an eye on him as, this coaching.
I love Kyle Whittingham.
The coaching circle starts to move.
I just wonder. He's not young anymore.
Oh, no, he's not. He's like in his low 60s.
Early 60s, I think. Because I kind of liked him as a candidate at Nebraska last year, and I was told by some people that would know, that's like, if he was going to move, it was probably going to be like 5-ish years ago. Which is, obviously we love Matt Rule now, but it was a little frustrating because apparently one of the places he wanted to go to was Nebraska, either in the 2014 hiring cycle or the 2017 hiring cycle. Obviously it didn't go that way, but it's if he ever moved, whoever got him, that'd be a huge win for them. But the one that I kind of wanted to talk about here was, I was thinking about that Texas A&M job because it's the highest profile one open right now. And we talked earlier in this week about how maybe it's not quite as good of a job as people think it is, in the sense of the expectations versus the actual history of winning. It's got a little bit of almost like imposter syndrome there, where they think they're better than they are,
unless you get a really splash hire.
But if you've got
somebody even bigger than Jimbo,
I would say, but if you've got the resources of Texas A&M, you're going to expect to win at a higher level than they have been. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, that's kind of, at that high profile of a job, can they pull off something? Because, we've already seen the list, and Dan Lanning's come out and said, I'm not a candidate. And Deion's come out and said whatever Deion says. And Mike Norvell has been like, nah.
Deion wouldn't move until Shadir goes to the NFL.
Yeah, because he can't transfer again. Deion's not moving this year. Next year, all bets are off.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, I don't think there's any way. Mike Norvell came out and was like, I'm not a candidate.
Although, low-key, I still think Mike Norvell is a candidate.
Oh, I think they're all candidates still, if we're being honest.
Yeah, because whenever you hear guys come out and say, my worry is this team in this season, that's what they have to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if somebody comes at you and says, I don't know how much Norvell makes, I'm just going to guesstimate and say he makes $7 million. Okay?
Yeah, that might be a little high, honestly.
And if it is high, whatever. You still know A&M's going to offer somewhere in the 9s to 10.
Oh, he's at 8,
year.
actually.
Okay, so he's still making a good chunk of money. So to
good.
move and to make that move, he's got to make like 11.
I was like, you got to get at least to 10
Mm-hmm.
minimum. You got to get to 10 for that to matter, right? Because he's got it going at Florida State, and to make it worthwhile to be like, hey, I'm going to go try something somewhere else. And I know Florida State was in a much worse position talent-wise when he took over, but it did take him a couple years at Florida State. How patient is Texas A&M? That's kind of, because they haven't.
Well, they're in an area right now where they could win now.
Yeah, you would think so with the talent that's been brought in by Jimbo, because that's the one thing he's done well.
So I'm guessing the waiting period for them
would be pretty short.
Is short,
real short.
Like you are competing for a national title in 2 years.
I was within a couple years.
In 2
honestly,
years,
that's a tall order.
Mm-hmm.
Even with a stacked roster coming in, that's still a tall order, because you don't know. A lot of those guys obviously came in for Jimbo or whoever the position coaches are, Elijah Robinson, guys like that, and you just don't. You don't know how many of those guys are staying in the first place, and secondly, you don't know how many of those guys will be bought into the new guys. So I agree with you that that's probably the time frame. But I don't know that it's going to be as easy as it would seem on paper.
It could be easier, though, because of the expanded playoff.
Sure.
So if you're competing in that, I'm sure that's a good thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that would be good enough.
That's them saying, we're a part of this.
We're making progress. But I do wonder, with expanded SEC as well, Oklahoma and Texas coming in, it's not like that league's getting any easier, right? Is it easier to make it to the top 12 than the top 4? Absolutely. But I think that's a low-key challenging job based on what they want from their football program.
So who do you think they go after?
Well, so that's kind of what I was thinking, because they feel like somebody that would try and pull off a Lincoln Riley pull, like USC did. Because if you remember, Lincoln Riley's name had gotten tied to LSU a little bit. Not a soul had tied him to USC, which is, in this day and age, remarkable. Like, good on you, USC. That was sneaky AF. That was crazy.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it really did.
Way out of left field.
Everybody was like stunned. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, who is somebody of that profile that you could look at and say, hey, this makes sense for them. Maybe they would have some motivation to move. And I still don't really know what Lincoln Riley's motivation was to move, except for maybe he just didn't want to live in Oklahoma anymore. But the guy that I came up with, and this is probably because he's come up recently in a different area, and you'll know what I mean once I say his name. I was kind of thinking Dabo.
So it's funny you say that. I was thinking the same thing. And this isn't just like me saying it because
we didn't talk about this.
I was thinking Dabo too, because of everything that's going down at Clemson and how he's kind of like mustered up a frustrated fan base now.
Yeah.
Where they're just taking personal attacks at him and he's taking personal attacks back. And it just doesn't seem like a nice marriage anymore. Yeah. A divorce is in the making. And if you're looking to be competing for a national championship in 2 years, maybe grab somebody that's done it a ton.
Well, and it's not like Texas A&M, or it's not like Clemson had a ton more history of success than Texas A&M at the time that Dabo was hired. They had the one title in 81, I think, but that was it. So obviously A&M has a longer history of not having titles, but you have a couple programs that have high expectations that have not met them for a long time. Obviously Dabo did well there. I think he's on the table.
That is crazy that you think the same thing, because looking at like every article out there about potential candidates, Dabo's name isn't on
No.
there. So it's not like we've seen reports and are now just like joining that group.
No, the guys that have been out there are, like we said, Norvell and Lanning and Mike Elko from Duke, because he's got ties back to Texas. I think he was the DC at Texas A&M.
Yep.
I've seen articles with Kleiman and Leipold.
With Traylor's name in there
Traylor
because of
from
his
UTSA.
high school connections.
Like I said to Adam, there's no way Texas A&M fans will accept the UTSA coach at Texas A&M. Like, there, even if he's the right hire, there's just no. It's kind of like, and I don't know if this is obviously LSU got a better hire than this, but there was a time where people are like, shouldn't Billy Napier just get the LSU job? Because he was at Louisiana Lafayette, was doing really well. And it seemed like they were kind of floundering because Mel Tucker was a name attached to them, and he got his extension.
Look, be mad though. If Jeff Traylor goes somewhere else, get ready to get mad.
Oh, for sure,
because he's going to win wherever he goes.
They absolutely don't want him now. But if their coach doesn't succeed and he goes and succeeds somewhere else, their revisionist history is going to be, why didn't we just hire Jeff Traylor? And it's going to be hilarious because Aggies fans are the worst.
Right. It's kind of like, when you see Scott Frost fizzle out, it's, well, Kyle Whittingham's doing great. Like, why weren't we in his boat?
Right.
Not really.
Which, again, the Scott Frost thing was the only hire they could make in that situation.
Lane Kiffin could be a relative splash for them too.
Lane Kiffin, and I have seen his name attached a little bit.
I would actually say more than a little bit.
Yes.
Like in most articles, you see Lane's name pop up.
And he's interesting because I do think Texas A&M's a little bit easier job than Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is a really hard job. They don't quite have the resources of Texas A&M. They have almost the expectations, and that's I think Ole Miss and Mississippi State are really hard jobs. And so that I wouldn't be shocked if Lane Kiffin moved on at some point. That's why before the rule stuff got going at Nebraska, I was like, I'm not sure he's out of the question at Nebraska, because I think Nebraska is an easier job than Ole Miss.
Okay, one other name.
Okay, yeah, let's keep spitballing here.
And this one could be a little out there, could be right on the nose.
Okay.
Kenny.
It's somebody that hasn't had a whole lot of success lately.
Okay.
Cliff Kingsbury. Welcome back to Texas A&M. The reason for that,
I thought about that one,
is yes, he kind of has like the Matt Rule go at it, right? He was, a successful coordinator, a successful quarterback's coach, really was able to kind of let Johnny Manziel do whatever he wanted. Then he went to Texas Tech and was able to, bring somebody pretty good into the National Football League that, I don't know if he's won MVPs or Super Bowls, but
I think
it's pretty
close.
His,
Patrick?
What's his name?
Mahomes?
Shane? You like him, right?
No, you like him a lot as a Raiders fan, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Pat Mahomes.
Oh, that's who it is. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Then he went to go coach at Arizona, and he had Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray was good for the first few years. And then now he's with Lincoln Riley again, coaching up Caleb Williams to get him ready for the league.
Only hesitation on Cliff Kingsbury is I don't think he's ever had a winning season in college football.
But he is from San Antonio, Texas, and he's got some deep roots and deep connections there.
We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Good morning. Welcome back into Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me.
Hey, fellas.
We are talking about coaches. We were talking a lot of Texas A&M and college coaches there. I did want to switch gears a little bit and go to NFL coaches here.
Yes.
Because we saw, and they haven't, really started the carousel as much in the NFL yet as they have in college, but we did see an interesting move from a team that I think most people considered Super Bowl contenders.
At least AFC champion contenders.
Yeah, and that's the Buffalo Bills firing their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. I'm sure people of a certain age remember that name from the early 2000s Miami Hurricanes teams. But they fire Ken Dorsey, and it kind of a little bit felt like a panic mode move for me.
Well, it just surprised me a ton because Ken Dorsey isn't the one throwing all these interceptions. It's Josh Allen. And look, I know some people would be like, wait a second, all week you guys have been talking about Marcus Satterfield and the quarterbacks at Nebraska. This is a completely different story. Josh Allen was the third overall pick in the NFL draft when he first came in. Something high like that. He was a high first round pick. Yeah. And he was also and has been looked at as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL since he's been in the league. Yet he constantly turns the football over. His throws aren't always on the money. Sometimes they have way too much steam on them to where his receivers can't even catch it. You saw the one that popped off Gabe Davis's hands on Monday night. Was it Monday Night Football? Sunday Night Football? Monday night.
One of these days.
Last week, right? It popped off Gabe Davis's hands into Broncos country. Let's ride. So
get out of here, Russ.
Ken Dorsey, though, it just surprises me on a move like this. And yes, he's taking over for Daboll. Right. And Brian Daboll was highly successful.
And really the only year in which Josh Allen wasn't an enormous turnover machine was, I believe, the last year under Daboll.
So the move with where the Bills are today was kind of like is this just because they constantly were losing? So in order to kind of show Bills Mafia that they were thinking about, hey, we know we're in poor shape, we'll do something about it, so we're going to get rid of Dorsey because it's easier to get rid of your OC at this time and just allow whether it's McDermott or somebody else slot up to call plays, and that's maybe one thing, but it's not like the offense was that bad for the Bills this year. Like, they struggled to find offensive consistency and put together drives. Because, look, they had 21% of drives ending in a turnover since week 5. That's not good, right?
Yeah, we know that very well in Nebraska.
But they're third in offensive EPA. They're second in completion percentage and third in yards per play this year. So it's not like the offense is underperforming. No. It's the fact that you have a quarterback that's just turning the ball over. And on occasion, you have guys that can't hold on to the football.
Yeah, Josh Allen's been a turnover machine pretty much most of his career, even going back to his Wyoming days. This is ball security has always been an issue with Josh Allen. And I don't think you can look at Ken Dorsey and say it's his fault, because Josh Allen is far enough into his NFL career that this is kind of just who he is. And that's the major difference between Nebraska's quarterbacks and this situation is, outside of Jeff Sims, these are young guys. These are guys that haven't played a ton, that the coaching has a greater influence on those guys than it does an NFL guy. An NFL offensive coordinator, you're not really trying, for the most part, you're not really developing guys, especially at this point in their career, so much as just putting them in positions to be successful. And with those numbers you read off, Ken Dorsey was doing that. They were getting, when they were not turning the ball over, they were being successful. So I have a hard time putting that on Dorsey. And it really does feel like he's kind of just a scapegoat here in terms of, obviously, you can't get rid of Josh Allen. You're not going to get rid of McDermott in the middle of the season when you still have a chance to make the playoffs. So what do you do to kind of shake things up and appease the mob at the gate? You fire Ken Dorsey, which I think Ken Dorsey's actually been a pretty good offensive coordinator. I think he was at Cleveland for a hot minute. You know, he's been around the league a minute now.
Yeah, he won't have problem finding a new job.
No.
But it's just funny to me that that's the move that gets made.
Yeah, it was odd. I didn't
like, we talk about Brandon Staley a lot, right? And how, why is he still a head coach in the NFL? Yet the Chargers keep riding him. And now he's controlling the defense again. And like, there's so many things with that organization where it's like, hey, you know, the alarm bells are sounding, like, let's get something, let's get somebody new in here, which honestly, can I give you like a little like wink, wink, nudge, nudge?
Yeah.
Don't be surprised.
Okay, I'm waiting for it. I'm ready.
By next season.
Okay.
If Bill Belichick's the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers.
So that's interesting, because I do think Staley is not long for this world. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't been fired yet, because they have dramatically.
I thought he was going to get fired in week 3.
Yeah, I like dramatically underperformed, and this isn't new for them. Underperforming is kind of his MO. But you were telling me off air about this story, because I mean, I think everybody kind of knows, like, hey, this is probably it for Belichick in New England, whether he gets fired, whether he resigns, whether he moves on to a different team. But you were telling me about a story that you were reading, and I hadn't seen this, about how there's a rumor out there that the whatever deal or whatever his next location is already in place.
Yeah, Dan Orlovsky said a couple of days ago that he heard the location, the next location for Bill Belichick is already kind of determined.
So to me, that says that somebody's going to trade picks to New England for Bill Belichick. And
why not, right? You have Justin Herbert, who's a young quarterback that he can help mold. You have a good like set of teams, a team that I think falls into our panic mode category.
Yes, me too.
At the record that they are this year, somebody that look, they have all the talent in the world, and Justin Herbert puts up the stats, yet they can't find ways to win football games. Why? Well, there has to be an internal problem somewhere, and I think it starts at the top with the head man. With Bill Belichick looking to retire at some point in his life, he's 71 years old. Why not go over to LA where it's warm, Shane? Go to the beach every now and then. It seems like a great stop for somebody with old brittle bones like Bill Belichick, who likes to wear sleeves all the time.
If you can't go to Florida, go to California.
Why not?
So Brandon Staley, obviously he's in his third year, and again, underperformed pretty much his entire time at the Chargers. And listen, a lot of guys don't do well in their first stop. They bounce back. Like maybe Brandon Staley is a really good football coach. He hasn't, I don't think, gotten the most out of this team. But I was thinking about what teams make sense for Belichick. And the Chargers are definitely high on that list because it has to be a team that's basically got everything in place to win, because he's not going to go somewhere to try and rebuild. Otherwise, he would just stay in New England. And we've already seen, like, man, maybe that's not the best situation there. I do low-key kind of wonder about, like, because there's not a ton of teams that fit that description.
The panic mode description?
No, I think I think there's 3 that are in panic mode. I think the Bills, we saw that with their move with Ken Dorsey. I think the Chargers, because they had really high expectations, and now they are in second. They're tied for last place in their division. And then I think the Bengals need to be
they're borderline
bit in panic mode as well, because they've started playing better, but because of how they started at the beginning of the season, they're in last place in their division, and there's not going to be a lot of wins left for them to go find. That's my concern with Cleveland,
especially because the AFC North is so deadly. Coming into the season, I remember looking at the win totals for these teams and thought, wow, all of them kind of rest around either 7.5 to 9.5 to 10.5, and all 4 teams were in that same category. But at some point, you have to think, not all 4 of these teams can win 9 to 10 games.
No.
At some point, they're going to lose to one another. So who's going to be the odd man out? It looks like the Bengals right now.
Yeah.
And that's not good when you have a team that's built so high on the totem pole with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. You have a good defense still. Zach Taylor's a great coach. It's shocking to believe that they're the team at the bottom of the pit.
Well, and the margin of error for them was so slim because of how good that division is. I really think it's because Joe Burrow's calf wasn't healthy to start the season. We saw him at the start of the season versus now. He wasn't himself. If he's healthy to start the year, they're probably fine. But guess what? He wasn't. That's part of the game. And they might be in some trouble the rest of the way out here. But think about this one as a possible landing spot for Belichick.
Uh-oh.
What about Jacksonville?
I like Doug Peterson.
Is he Bill Belichick?
I think he's been more successful lately than Bill Belichick.
If they don't get where they want to this year, I wonder if they're
Doug
looking
Peterson
at it.
got you a Super Bowl in Philly?
Yeah, this ain't Philly, though. It's Jacksonville.
He's doing fine.
Listen, Bill Belichick's old. He's got to go retire to Florida. Isn't that what they do?
I do know that Bill Belichick is a huge Giants fan.
It's true.
I mean, not to say that he just goes a little bit north or south.
We'll see what happens. Coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
3 or 6 coming out of the half, scoring on back-to-back drives and giving yourself some momentum. You know, that's huge in a game, especially against a good team like we just played. So it stings. Losing's never fun. Losing sucks. It's one thing though. We're not going to let this divide us. You know, and we're gonna come together. We're gonna figure it out.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Aaron Rodgers. Jeez.
We could talk about Aaron, though, after we talk a little Josh Allen with Nate.
Andrew Rodgers here with me. We're on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Joining us on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is our guy, Nate. Nate, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I love your show, man. I love listening to you guys, man.
Appreciate you.
I just want to say one thing, man. You know, Josh Allen seems like a great guy, man, but I'm tired of the excuses, bro.
Amen.
You know, I'm tired of people making excuses for the guy, man. You know what I mean? You know, like he's turning the ball over, he causing games, he getting people fired, man. You know what I mean?
He's a liability.
Yeah, he's a liability, man. He's a great guy. You ever work with a guy, he's a great guy, but you know, you got to, can't keep making excuses for the guy. You know
right. I sit next to Ravi every day. It's crazy.
It's true. I'm a huge liability.
And also, man, it's one thing about Matt Rule, I can't say, man. The guy, he stays the course, man. It's easy to throw people under the bus, but he don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've grown to respect him for that, man. You know, because I know he thinks to himself, as soon as the season knows I'm getting rid of Satterfield, he got to go, but he won't say it publicly. And so you got to respect the guy. You got to respect a guy like that. Saying, thank y'all for taking my call, man.
Hey,
Appreciate
thank you, and thanks
Nate.
for the kind words, man.
Yeah, I mean, I do. That is one of the things I respect the most about Coach Rule is that he's not going to throw anyone under the bus.
He's accountable.
He's going to take ownership, even to a fault, when it's not his fault, right? But
it's a challenge.
I do appreciate that about him, and as long as he's having the right conversations behind closed doors, where he's keeping Satterfield accountable as well, which I'm sure he is, that's what matters to me at this point. But I mean, he's right about Josh Allen. Like, what was it, 2 years ago? We were talking about him I wasn't, but other people were talking about him in the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, he had a great year. He had a terrific year. The year that they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, that was like the 13-second year, right, where they get the Chiefs got in field goal position.
That was a year Buffalo had a good defense too.
Yeah, right. And that was a team that if Buffalo was going to break through and win a Super Bowl, like that was probably the team. But they got Patrick Mahomes pretty hard.
Letting somebody go down the field in 13 seconds and score on you.
Unbelievable.
Imagine.
Like, I don't know. I know we made a big
deal.
With no
timeouts.
Right. That's the crazy. Like, I know we made a big deal about it at the time. I don't know if enough is made about how ridiculous that was. Just, I mean, it's an all-time moment in Patrick Mahomes' career to make it in that spot. That would have been a crazy feat in a regular season game, but to go to the Super Bowl, that was a whole other deal. So that was probably his best chance, though, and he played really well that year. And people were like, "Oh, who are you taking, Mahomes or Josh Allen?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm still taking Burrow over Allen. Like, get out of my face with this Josh Allen stuff." Because I agree with Nate. He's always, outside of 1 year, he has always been a turnover machine. And you can't just look at the interceptions, because that dude has fumbled the ball a ton in his career also. It's been a huge problem for him taking care of the football. And as we've seen to a more extreme degree here at Nebraska, it is really hard to win football games consistently if you don't know on any given play, any given possession, whether or not your quarterback's going to take care of the football. It's just too hard to do consistently. It's not a practical way. And I'm not saying they should move on from Josh Allen, because obviously, even with the turnovers,
he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, he's still, top 5, probably, maybe 6 if you like certain guys, but he's certainly one of the best quarterbacks in the league still. But there's a gap between, okay, the guys that you can trust and rely on to take care of the football and play at that level, and then him, who, he's a little bit more Brett Favre than Tom Brady, right? He's going to put the ball in harm's way. He's going to take some chances that maybe he shouldn't.
Great analogy.
And listen, I know Brett Favre won a Super Bowl. They wanted a super high level with Brett Favre.
Well, Buffalo will probably win one too.
I mean, it's certainly possible. I'm not ruling it out.
They could still win this year, theoretically.
Yeah, they could get it turned around and win this year. Or I would never rule out the possibility of Josh Allen and Buffalo winning a Super Bowl. But the point is, you're going to have a much harder time. And we saw this with Favre winning consistently. He had some rough years in Green Bay because of how frequently he turned the ball over. You really have a smaller margin for error, and you have to rely more on the defense and special teams to be consistent. Whereas a guy like Brady, a guy like Mahomes actually makes those units better. He makes life easier on those units. That's the difference between a good quarterback and a great or an all-timer is, listen, good quarterbacks make the offense better. Great quarterbacks make the entire team better. And Josh Allen is not in that category. He often makes things a little bit more challenging for the other parts of the team.
Well, yeah, to a degree, because he does still make the offense better.
For sure makes the offense better, yes.
But yes, he doesn't make the team overall better right now.
Yeah.
Because the offense is still performing. Like I gave the statistics in the last segment with Ken Dorsey's firing. The offense is still working. It's just a matter of how you have to limit those mistakes that can be detrimental to your offense. And that's what hurts the team at the end of the day. He's got to do a better job of protecting the football. Sometimes I wonder, and I wondered this with Nebraska quarterbacks too. You know that game that like you would go to a carnival and you'd throw a football into like a net of like a cardboard cutout of a football player? Like sometimes I wonder if they could even hit that target, like any of them.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit to do with what we see in the turnover department.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert gets a lot of crap for not being able to get to the playoffs or perform well in the playoffs and
not being a winner
and get the Chargers in a position to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Yet you look at Herbert's stats opposed to Allen's, and he throws at least 5 less picks a year. At least.
Yeah. I mean,
and this year it's probably going to be closer to 10 picks less in a year.
Yeah.
He still is helping his team win. That team is just not offensively performing to their ability.
Yeah.
And so when you take Josh Allen into account altogether, he does have to be reassessed. He does have to be looked at as, okay, yeah, you may be a top 6 quarterback in the league, but are you the best chance that we have to win?
And for Buffalo, it probably is, but because the chances of finding someone as good as Josh Allen somewhere else is pretty low. That's the harsh reality of the quarterback situation in the NFL is you've got these guys who are obviously flawed, and that there's times where they do hurt your team.
Sometimes
because
you just got to stick it out.
But that's the key, right? There's all the gap between guys like Josh Allen and like the middle half of the league in terms of where their quarterback play is.
Yeah, like Sam Howell's performing as one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. Would you rather have Sam Howell or Josh Allen?
Yeah, I'm picking Josh Allen.
Most times,
yeah.
If not 100% of the time, you're picking Josh Allen.
Without
CJ Stroud, though, or Josh Allen, it could be a little more interesting.
But I'm
still leaning Josh Allen.
Well, the problem is if you stick it out, you may miss that window to where you have the opportunity to win everything because of contracts, because of other guys getting older on the team. So you're playing that. You're trying to find that sweet spot. So I don't know about sticking it out.
But removing Allen from that equation, I don't know if you can find somebody else that can either be as productive or sustainable offensively, like to match that or come close to Josh Allen.
And that's kind of my point, right?
It's the toughest thing to do in the NFL.
Like you look at, quarterback evaluation in general is the toughest thing to do in the NFL in terms of putting a team together, right? Because look at the guys that got drafted last year, all right? 3 guys that people were pretty high on. I was not super high on Anthony Richardson, but a lot of people were. The top 3 guys taken: Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. Well, Anthony Richardson's hurt, so we really don't know what he is yet. Bryce Young
he was looking like the rookie of the year early, though.
Bryce Young is struggling. And then you've got CJ Stroud,
who is now
awesome,
the undoubtedly rookie of the year.
Who's just awesome, right? So we have no idea. We have no idea what Anthony Richardson is. It's too early on Bryce Young, but it's a rough start. And then you've got CJ Stroud, who's awesome, right? So the chances of getting the CJ Stroud, even if you do go all in and try and get a new guy in the draft, it's still a crapshoot. I mean, I think the percentage is like only 40% of first-round quarterbacks are any good at all. And then to get a guy that's at the level of Josh Allen is a much smaller percentage, even still. So that's the problem with deciding to move on is move on to what? There's not very often that you've got a Tom Brady who's just out there and available. It's not very often that you have an Aaron Rodgers who's just out there and available. And or like Peyton Manning when he went to Denver. But what's the key with all 3 of those guys? They're ancient, right? All of those guys were very old when they moved on. So you're saying, hey, if I get one of these guys, I have to have a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl right away. They figured it out with Denver and Peyton Manning. They figured it out with Tampa and Tom Brady. I don't know what the Jets would have looked like with Aaron Rodgers if he was healthy. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but they certainly would be better than they are now.
Yeah. Well, and that's a team that I actually had in the panic mode category.
The Jets? Yeah, I mean,
because defensively, they're built.
No, they're incredible.
They're ready.
I actually really like their roster.
I like their offense too.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, maybe
Breece Hall.
Maybe what, top 5 receiver in the NFL? Garrett Wilson?
Top 10 probably at the least.
You look Breece Hall healthy,
getting
awesome, all the reps, top 10 running back in the NFL. Could someday be a top 5 running back, like even as soon as next year. This team is built to win, yet they're surviving or trying to survive with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
It may actually be too late at this point for the Jets to ever try to make a move to get a more sustainable quarterback in until Rodgers comes back. Well, because even if Rodgers returns from this injury, if he has some godlike moment and comes back way earlier than he's supposed to, the Jets still are probably in a position where they don't play him because they're not in playoff contention.
Yeah. it's a, like I said, it's a crazy position to try and evaluate, and they're struggling. More Hurrdat Sports coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Three-pointer short from Justin Edwards. Airball. They will yell airball as McCullough feeds a rolling Adams at the rim for the alley-oop slam. Timeout called by John Calipari, and Kansas is back within 4.
Golick now attacking into the corner. Cam Jones won't take the open three. Now drives baseline. Still working on Dudgeon to the basket. Scoop
got one.
good.
Got one.
To foul.
There's Proctor running some time off the clock. Dribbling to the right, 6 to shoot. Finds Foster again. Right wing three goes down again. 4 triples for Caleb Foster, the freshman.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We are joined now by C.L. Brown. He's a columnist for the Louisville Courier-Journal covering college basketball. CL, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. You know, it's been a fun start to the college basketball season so far. I really like this time of year where they start getting those more high-profile matchups. We saw Kansas, Kentucky the other night, Marquette, Illinois. In these kind of high-profile games, who's impressed you the most so far this year?
That's a good question. I would probably say Marquette was impressive. Illinois is a very tough place to play for teams that don't go there on a regular basis, especially. And I just think that they showed a lot of poise. The point guard Tyler Kolek showed a lot of heart because from the reports of it, Shaka Smart didn't even know he was going to be able to play. And his ankle was supposedly all blue and black, but he powered through it for 24 points I think he had in that game. So I like the pieces that they had. They had a lot of guys returning, and I'll say this till March. I'm always big on point guards being the difference makers. When it comes down to it, to reaching Final Fours and everything in college basketball. So I liked what Marquette did this week.
So speaking of point guards, there's another one in the Big East that's pretty good and very new to a team, and that's Stephen Ashworth. Do you think he is that guy that can elevate this Creighton bunch along with, the other pieces that they have to get to the Final Four and make a run?
Well, I haven't seen him live ever, which also helps. But no, I also thought that Creighton certainly got a lot of pieces in, and I have the theory in sports in general that you kind of have to lose at a big level before you can win at that level. And I think last year their run and losing that heartbreaker to San Diego State, I think that bodes well for all the pieces they have returning, to kind of understand what it takes to get over that hump. So the only thing I probably worry about with Ashworth is long term. He did make a bit of a jump up in level coming from Utah State. So he'll have a season's worth of the Big East to kind of get acclimated. But I hate to say it's Trey Alexander's team, but I definitely feel like Creighton's fate will go as Trey Alexander goes.
Yeah, no, you don't have to hate to say that. That's accurate. I think that's dead on your read there. I've been curious about how people outside of Duke view the job that Jon Scheyer's done since taking over there. Obviously, he got, I believe, a big extension recently. He's been putting together incredible recruiting classes, and then they had that nice win yesterday against Michigan State. What have been your thoughts on Jon Scheyer and Duke in the post-Coach K era?
Well, I kind of feel like he's checking all the boxes he has to check, but we have to see it on the court. Like I kind of felt like he might have got a bit of a pass last year. There wasn't heavy criticism of him because they were able to win the ACC tournament, and that's how the ACC crowns its champion. So you can hang a banner on that.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so injured during the year, just different pieces at different times. It seemed like they were never playing with their completely full roster. But ultimately, he's going to be judged by the postseason. Like all of this is nice, the start that they have, and the recruits that he's signed. He's definitely kept it at that high level. But if they don't make it out of the first weekend this year, then it's going to be a problem. Now, I don't think it'll be at the level where he gets really uncomfortable by it and there's such an uproar about it, but it would put a lot of pressure into season 3 for him because, they ultimately they're judged on Final Fours and national championships, and he'll be judged the same way regardless of, how much experience he has or doesn't have.
Sticking in the ACC and the state of North Carolina, and frankly, teams that are judged by Final Fours, a team that came up really short last year was North Carolina, came in with a ton of expectations, fell flat on their face. What do you think their ability is to bounce back this year in a post-Caleb Love world?
Yeah, I honestly think it probably helped a little to have so many of the guys from last year not return. Frankly, I think they kind of just needed a fresh start. Both individuals like Caleb and Hubert Davis and his staff, because these are still players he inherited from Roy Williams, which is good and bad. It's good in the sense that they're veteran guys, but it's bad in the sense that Hubert hasn't really he hasn't been cooking with all of his own ingredients. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The guys that he went out and recruited and signed and selected. So this team has a lot more of that influence with the transfers they got in. I really like Harrison Ingram, the Stanford transfer for them. I think he could have a big year. But yeah, Hubert definitely is feeling a little pinch. I think he has a lot to prove this year. Starting with just the rotation, like they had talent last year that he just didn't play enough. And he talked a lot about using the bench, but he didn't really implement that. So they've got a lot of talent this year too. So I think a lot of eyes are on just how he's going to actually coach this team.
CL, they're currently 19th in the polls, but one of my favorites to make the Final Four this year is Texas, a team built to take that leap forward, destined for a trip to Phoenix.
Are you saying, are they destined?
Yes. Are they a team that's destined for a trip to Phoenix?
I don't know about destined, but I do like Tyrese Hunter. Let's go back starting with point guards and Max Abrams, Abmas. I'm sorry. They're kind of interchangeable, and I think that's a lot. That gives them a lot to work with. I'm actually going to get to see them on Sunday in person. I'm going up to New York for the Empire Classic, so Louisville will play them in the first game, and UConn and Indiana play in the game, and the winners play on Monday. I don't think I'll be in the winners game, but that's another story. But yes, I think Rodney Terry in year 2. Even though he's an experienced head coach, I think there are a lot of situations of guys like John Shire, like Kenny Payne here in Louisville, like Neptune at Villanova. A lot of guys in year 2 of their current jobs, people are really, the microscope is going to be on, even though they're new into the tenure, because I don't think the leash is very long. But obviously, getting to the Elite Eight last year with Rodney Terry and solidifying himself as the head coach and removing that interim tag was big for Texas. So it's a little bit different when you're playing under expectations, though. So we'll see how those guys handle that.
Yeah, quick follow up with that Texas point. How contingent do you think it is on Dylan Mitchell taking that next step? Because he was somebody last year that all eyes were on. I mean, it seemed like NBA scouts were just in the seats constantly to watch him play, and he never really showed much. It was more of just like, I'll get 4-6 points a game and maybe a few rebounds.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the consistency with him. He was a bit of his talent kind of teased you. You would see it in spots, but you never really. I never really felt like I got what he was projected to be, and saw him with his full potential. Although I do think, if I remember correctly, I do think one of the double figures games he had scoring was against Creighton earlier in the year last year when Texas won that game. But yeah, he'll be a key figure for them as well. And the good thing though is I do think they have enough pieces to where, you know, if he does continue kind of that up and down to play with a little inconsistency, they have enough that, you know, they can get over the hump. I don't think that team will be reliant on him coming around, but it sure will help if they really want to, you know, if they're really going to make a run to the Final Four.
CL, one of the teams that I kind of constantly wonder about, especially considering their flame out in the NCAA tournament last year, is Purdue. Obviously, they've got super high expectations coming into this year. They return, you know, probably the favorite for the National Player of the Year in Zach Edey. How do you feel about Purdue coming into the season, considering how last season ended for them?
Man, I really like Matt Painter, and I really hope that they get over the hump. But they're a team, just given this recent track record, that they just have to prove it. I think one of the things with Purdue that I feel like Painter is exceptional at is getting them to they kind of peak early to me. Like he gets them to play at a high level early in the season. And I think 2 years ago, the 2022 season when they lost to St. Peter in the NCAA tournament, I felt like that team, with no question, was a Final Four team. I remember seeing them when they played North Carolina in Uncasville at a tournament at the casino, and that was a high level game, and you know Purdue was playing, running on all cylinders in like November, but Painter's got to figure out a way to hit the reset button, you know, for the postseason for those guys, because I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them. Regardless of whatever they achieve, if they win another Big Ten title or whatever in the regular season, it's really going to come down to, all right, you guys got to show us, because these last 2 years in the postseason, you know, I don't want to say it's been a failure because they've been so good, but they need to have the postseason success to match what they're doing during the regular season.
CL, you've gotten a chance to watch most of these teams match up against other top teams in the country right now, at least those in the top 25. Kansas is the current #1 team in the country, showed incredible resilience Tuesday night to come back and beat Kentucky. Have they been the most impressive team for you early on, or is there another team that gets your vote?
Oh, wow. That's another good question, because the funny thing about Kansas was I was very impressed till I saw them in person. Just because I thought they let Kentucky play with them. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I felt like they were clearly the better team, and they showed that in the second half, you know, and Kentucky kind of fed into it by making some, you know, young mistakes with the team that they have. But because you're not going to be able to just turn it on and turn it off when you're playing against a veteran team. And you know, I thought Kansas kind of did that for whatever reason. But they have so many guys that can hurt you. I mean, I thought the funny thing about the Champions Classic game was Hunter Dickinson, to me, was kind of struggling earlier, and then you look up and he has 27 and 21 in that game. You know, I think that I would have to say, even though I guess my expectations for Kansas was a bit higher, but I would say they probably are the most complete team that I've seen so far.
CL, kind of on the other side of that coin, is there a team either you've seen or just kind of been keeping an eye on that's maybe highly regarded right now that you expect to regress as the season goes on compared to what their expectations are?
Oh, wow. That's a good question, because I can't even answer that. I don't know that there is a team right now that You want me to be a hater, man?
No, I want you to be a realist. Just, like for instance, for me, like I'll give you one for me, and then maybe you can.
Because Ravi is a hater.
Yeah, because I'm an unapologetic hater. Like I know UConn has a ton of talent, but they lost 3 really key guys from that national championship team. Do I think they're still going to be really good this year? Yeah, absolutely. Do I think they're a top 5, top 10 team? I'm not totally sure about that yet. So that's kind of what I mean. That's not, you don't have to be a hater, just maybe bring it back to reality a little bit.
Well, I'll keep it close to home. I will say Kentucky right now, because I think that they do obviously have all these phenomenal freshmen and who are uber talented, but and they even got guys who aren't playing yet, like mainly Aaron Bradshaw, the 7-footer, who's been injured and hasn't played yet this year. But I just think they're too young where it matters, and I'm not sure. Your listeners are gonna hate me keep talking about point guards. The point guard plays, and right now Calipari's playing DJ Wagner. He's starting at point, and I don't know what kind of recruiting promises or what have you that were made to him. He's not a point guard. Like it's evident he's not a point guard. The team runs better when Rob Dillingham or Reed Shepherd is playing on ball, and he moved DJ off the ball, and he struggled the other night as well against Kansas. I just think you got to free him up on the wing and let him do his thing there instead of trying to force this, square peg in a round hole. But I don't trust Kentucky. I think they're going to have a fun style this year. Trey Mitchell does so much for them at power forward, and then he played the 5 the other night because they don't have any of their 7-footers. But they shot 38 threes, which was the most in during Calipari's tenure at UK, and they're gonna keep launching threes. They're gonna run a lot more of a modern offense than they have in the recent past, and so they'll be fun to watch, and I think they'll be tantalizing. But I think when it comes down to it, they're too young, and they're gonna rely on the 3 too much, and it's not gonna pop when they're in a road environment, especially. They might struggle, and they struggled the other night. I think they were 3 for 20 in the second half against Kansas, which kind of led to them losing that lead and the comeback. So Kentucky is the team I'm skeptical about.
CL, we'll get you out of here on this. The Maui Invitational is right around the corner. What are you looking forward to in this event, arguably featuring the top teams in the Big 12, SEC, Big East, and Big 10?
You know what? I'm not even sure who all is in the Maui this year. I haven't looked. I'm sorry.
Well, you got KU. I think Tennessee's in there. That's who I would factor in as the top team in the SEC. That could be argued if you'd like. Yeah. Big East is Marquette, and Purdue is in the Big 10 spot there. But just a ton of juggernauts. So just having them all together. Maybe spin it this way. What can a strength of schedule like that do for some of those teams early on in the year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it'll be a great barometer as to, it will be a litmus test to see who really is, tough. I do think Tennessee, going in, winning in Wisconsin, the way they did, scoring 80 at the Kohl Center. You don't see that too often, just with the pace of play and the way Wisconsin generally is on defense. And their transfer from Northern Colorado, Dalton Necht, he's the truth. I mean, again, when you kind of play up in level, a lot of times it's like, well, let's see how he can do it here, And he had a huge game, 24 points. I think he's leading Tennessee in scoring right now. So I'm curious to see him run through that juggernaut, but of teams in the Maui. But I do think Tennessee is definitely a team to watch too that we didn't talk about before. But we'll see how it all pans out in the Maui.
That is C.L. Brown. He is a columnist for the Louisville Courier Journal. CL, we appreciate your time. It was good to talk to you. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Oh, CL, quickly, who's your favorite position on the basketball court?
Oh, you know it's all about centers.
Thanks for your time, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, y'all take care.
That's CL Brown here for the big men out here. No, loves those point guards. Good stuff there from CL Brown of the Louisville Courier-Journal. That Maui Invitational field is stacked.
It is.
That's a great field. This year.
I'm right when I say that's the top. You have the top team in the Big 12, SEC, Big East, and Big 10. Correct? Like Tennessee is the top team in the SEC, right?
Yes, I believe so. I'm not sure rankings wise if that is true. Yeah, they're 8th. So yeah, they're the best team in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean that's just a juggernaut of a field.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you could probably make an argument. Some people like A&M or Arkansas a little bit better than Tennessee, but I think you could easily make the argument that you've got the best team, like you said, SEC, Big East, Big 10, Big 12.
That's crazy.
And
all in one place.
And then, you also have Gonzaga, UCLA, and Syracuse.
Hey, don't forget about Chaminade. They're there too.
Hey, we love Chaminade out there. Owner of probably the greatest upset in college basketball history.
Chaminade?
Yeah, and so back in the 80s.
Not the Golden Retrievers?
No, although we do love us a UMBC.
What about FDU?
No, so Chaminade, back when they started this tournament, it was literally held on their D3 campus. It's still held in a very small gym. But it was they were actually an NAI school back in, I want to say it was 83, but Virginia came down there. They had the best. They were,
of course, it was Virginia.
They were right. So they were the number 1 team in the country. They had Ralph Sampson, who was like a 2 or 3 time. I think he was a 2-time reigning National Player of the Year. Was going to win it a 3rd time that year, and they got upset by an NAIA team. The number 1 basketball team in the country in Division I got upset by an NAIA team.
I'm looking at the story right now. That's crazy.
It is. I mean, I think it's borderline one of the biggest upsets in sports history.
Guess how many students were in the school?
At that time, I think it was 1,500.
Try under 900.
Oh, there you go. It might be 1,500 now. It's
the sample size to choose from for Chaminade back then wasn't as great as Virginia.
Right. So yeah, it's one of the biggest upsets in sports history, and it kind of just falls by the wayside because there was this weird thing that happened.
On it? Is there a documentary on it?
I don't think so. There should be. It would be incredible, but. If there is a documentary and you've heard of it, let us know because I would watch that documentary.
The article, Virginia stunned by NAIA team.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, listen, I've been the NAIA team playing Division I schools. That's not supposed to happen. And we've never played the number 1 team in the country. That's
D2 schools aren't supposed to be D1 schools either. And we're seeing that.
Yeah.
It's more likely than an NAIA school. It's true. But way back when like this, whew,
what year is that? 83?
82.
82, okay.
It was tied 43-43 at halftime. Imagine going into the locker room and you're tied with an NAIA school and thinking, "Oh, we're still good.
We'll be fine.
We'll heat back up."
Spoiler alert: they were not fine.
What was the final of that game?
I don't know. I just know the Chaminade won. That's their claim to fame. Is Chaminade over Virginia, 1982. Coming up next, we're halfway through the show. We will get to a little bit of Hurrdat Hot Seat here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're halfway through the show here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're on Twitter and YouTube as well, live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill and from the H&H Chevrolet stage. I'm Ravi Lulla, Andrew Rogers here with me. It is time for our Hurrdat Hot Seat, and I want to tell you about our friends from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. They want to remind you, hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. As a driver, you have one job, and that is to drive. Do not get distracted. That's a message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Luckily, we're not driving right now, so we can get distracted about.
I'm always distracted when I'm on the show.
Our Hurrdat Hot Seat.
I'm looking around like, all right, do we have anybody in the building yet?
We are very much like the dog on Up. Just squirrel, squirrel. That's okay. Also named Doug, like one of my dogs, which we appreciate.
That's where that came from?
What, squirrel?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right.
Squirrel.
Hi there.
I mean, I think people said it before.
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure. I'm sure Up just added that
Yeah,
in because
yeah.
that's what Disney or DreamWorks or whoever made that movie does.
Yeah,
like you
take
steal,
stuff from the culture.
you steal culture and then you put it in, and
it's like
it makes people laugh, and then. But see how funny it is that we apply it to that movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, Hurrdat Hot Seat.
Oh, speaking of movies, can I go first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Shane, you can participate in this question too.
Okay.
If you could own any TV or movie prop, what would it be?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
I already know what mine would be.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It'd be the Mad Max car, the Ford Falcon XB.
Okay. Like the original Mad Max car.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a $2 million car, so I mean.
No, okay, so here let's
I mean that's a prop.
I know
that's iconic.
Yeah, but let's take out like houses and cars.
Yeah.
Because like a house would be like everybody's like first choice. Like the Ozark house
I'll
would
take
be
the,
like something that people would be
the
like
White House.
I'll take the Home Alone house from.
Yeah, exactly.
I've actually driven by that. My buddy lives pretty close to it. It's incredible. It's a ridiculous house.
So take out like big items like that. Like maybe lean more toward like because I think the most valuable
like handheld type.
the
stuff,
most valuable movie prop of all time is Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, I believe.
Probably. I mean, I'm sure it's up
So
there.
like something like that.
Yeah, think more like handheld portable. Not. I mean, I know cars are portable technically by definition, but so you're not talking like the Batmobile here.
Correct.
Dang, I want the Batmobile.
All right, so try again, Shane.
I'd even take the crappy one from the fourth movie, Batman and Robin.
I want the tumbler from the Christian Bale movie.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah?
That's what I want. I want the tumbler.
And
it doesn't even have to be black. It can be tan like it was.
Does it come in
So
black?
I'll give you mine.
Yeah, what's yours?
Mine.
I'm thinking here.
Mine would be the Babe Ruth baseball from Sandlot.
Oh, that's a good one. The
That-
chewed up one or the
Well, yeah. Well, regardless.
Yeah,
It's just I would say the chewed up one.
yeah, because it's like
Yeah.
iconic.
That's the one I
Yeah.
would have. Now, obviously, that's a fake signature. They're
Sure.
not letting a
Real
dog chew up a Babe Ruth signed baseball. But I think that would be like the prop that like would impact me the most because I was so sports heavy growing up, and I still am today. But like that was a movie that I watched all the
loved
time.
that movie.
And if I could at least get my hands on the Babe Ruth signed ball from that
Yeah.
movie, dude, like I don't even know how much it goes for, but that would be the prop.
yeah, I wouldn't even care how much it goes for. You know, the funny thing about the Sandlot is, like, as a kid, I totally understood the premise of like, oh, there's a really big dog, we're afraid of him, whatever. Now I would just be like, oh, it's a puppy,
Right.
it's a big puppy, and I love Mastiffs. Mastiffs are great dogs. Yeah, if unfortunately, I'm sure Hercules is no longer with us. I would take Hercules as the prop.
Yeah.
Although
That's not a prop.
I'm sure he belongs to somebody.
That's a live beam.
It is. Man, that's a tough one. You said Sandlot, and I immediately thought PF Flyers.
Yeah.
Benny the Jet Rodriguez shoes. You know what I probably would want is I'm gonna go childhood sports movie here as well.
Okay.
I think I would like the Michael Jordan Toon Squad jersey, like the one he wore in Space Jam.
Okay, that's a good one.
I think because I know the shoes that he wore, the Concord 11s are worth. I think they sold for multiple millions of dollars, the ones that he actually wore in the movie. But I think I want the jersey. I want the Michael Jordan Toon Squad jersey.
Shane, what would you take?
Well, the car was good. That's what I really would take.
Guess what, Shane?
The car's not on the
I
table, Shane.
I think
want
I
that car.
took that right off the table after you said it.
Okay, so since you mentioned Star Wars, I would probably go with the original Fett outfit.
Ooh, the Boba Fett outfit. Okay.
Okay.
I kind of was thinking, because once you said the lightsaber, I was kind of thinking, like, would there be a cool Star Wars one? I would like the Darth Vader mask would be kind of cool just to like have on your mantle. Or if I was going lightsaber, see, the problem with lightsabers are they're not actually going to light up in person, so they lose a lot of the cool, like, the value of it, right? Because I was thinking like, oh, the Darth Maul lightsaber, like the double-ended red one would be super cool. But yeah, if I had to go Star Wars, I think I'd go the Darth Vader helmet because that's iconic, right?
So what about
not non-burned up like in the
I don't want it like I want the like original,
What about the Infinity Stones?
Ooh, that if it had the gauntlet with it too, that'd be pretty sick.
That'd be a good one.
That'd be
I'm
pretty
looking
sick.
at and that
so
wasn't
like
on this list.
so I would put like Captain America's shield in there.
Yeah, so
that
Captain
would
America.
be that
It's
would
funny
be
that you
sick.
say that. Captain America's shield is
That's a
5 on
good
this
one.
list.
I do
of
look at like
most
an
memorable
Iron Man
movie
helmet would
props.
be cool.
Yep.
See, I was thinking. So I know one
the
of the
red slippers from the Wizard of Oz, the ruby red slippers.
Meh.
That's number 2 on this list.
I'm sure it's not for me personally. I'm not. I know for some people the like Lord of the Rings were a big deal, and like a bunch of the
That's third
cast
on this
members
list.
have them. I would be afraid I would lose it. Like it's
The
too
One
small.
Ring.
the rings are too small. I would be afraid I would lose them. So I want something a
they
little bit.
adjust to your finger size.
Well, that's only in the movie show.
No.
So Wilson from Castaway is 6th.
See, that just makes me sad. I don't want Wilson.
The leg lamp from A Christmas Story is 7th.
I hate that movie.
What?
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
Come on. The Sorting Hat from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's
That's not
Stone.
a bad one. That's not
8.
a bad one.
The Heart of the Ocean from the Titanic.
Okay.
That's a good
Well,
one.
I mean, that's down. I'm not taking a submarine to go get that. I don't want
to. Let's see here. The Golden Ticket, Willy Wonka.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Indy's Hat and Whip from the Indiana
That's
Jones
a pretty
franchise.
good one. You know which one I would also kind of like is Roy Hobbs' Bat from The Natural, Wonder Boy. I would take Wonder Boy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
The Mockingjay pin from Hunger Games.
Again, a little small. I'm afraid I would lose it.
That could be. What about McLovin's driver's license?
I would just carry it with me.
Although you could probably get arrested for having a fake ID technically.
Probably. Yeah.
So you would have
frame
to,
it. We'll
yeah,
just
you
frame
would
it
definitely
up.
have to frame it.
Frame it.
Oh, the FAO Schwartz piano from Big.
Okay.
Ken on the YouTube page says he says Thor's hammer.
Ooh, Thor's
that's
hammer
a
is
good one.
Thor's
That's a really
hammer's
good one. What about the red stapler from Office Space?
I'm okay there. I don't need that.
I'll stick with the Babe Ruth baseball.
Yeah, I think that's good. All right, my first one looks. I think we're only going to get to.
But could Ken pick up the hammer?
Well, that's the key.
That's the question.
Is he worthy? We don't know. I've never met Ken. All right, so I've got a would you rather.
Hit me.
Would you rather have slow/unreliable internet forever, or every time you logged into something, you forgot your password? So basically, you have to reset.
I feel like I always forget my password anyway.
I feel like you'd have to reset your password every time you logged into anything.
I'll reset my password.
Yeah.
And reason for it is it's not that hard to reset your password.
No,
and
but
if you
then
you don't have to remember it
every
right?
time.
Yeah, but you don't have to remember it. So I would just make sure that if I was committing to going onto an app, like Twitter, I would stay and just keep the Twitter screen on, like my phone on. You know how you can leave it on indefinitely?
Yeah.
I would just leave it on until I wanted to turn it off.
Were done.
But that way I wouldn't have to remember a password and I still have fast internet.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember passwords anyway, I guess. I'm on Amazon, no joke, for 5 minutes trying to figure out what password it is.
Yeah, I generally don't have any idea, especially because so many of the requirements are different now. So it's like, oh, you need a special character on this one or whatever. And so the passwords, I rely heavily on the
save password option.
Save password, or if there's a Face ID option to log into stuff. So I don't know if that counts, if I can bypass the password selection with the Face ID.
I would guess Face ID is off the table.
Yeah, I would guess
for
so
this
too.
Scenario, because that would be the easy answer.
It would be, but I think you're right. I think I still have to go with the resetting the password option, because you don't know who a person is until they have slow internet and you see how they react, because that is maybe, outside of extreme situations, the worst of humanity is watching someone deal with slow or unreliable internet, myself included.
Right.
I am generally a very calm guy, but if I'm trying to do something and the internet's messing with me, man, the worst comes out in a hurry. So yeah, I'd go forgotten passwords, especially if you knew that you were going to have to reset it every time. You could kind of just prepare yourself for that.
Right. I'm looking at more sports movies because I'm like, man, what would be a good movie prop?
Yeah.
What about what's his name's jersey from Remember the Titans? The guy that got in the car accident.
Oh, Gary Bertier.
Gary Bertier. What about his jersey?
That's an interesting one. Coming up next, we got Brian Edwards.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we are brought to you by our friends at the Warhorse Sportsbook, as we're about to talk to Brian Edwards, who's going to give us some of his picks for the week. Woo-hoo! Just a reminder, if you want to make a play on some of those picks, you can head over to Warhorse Sportsbook, either at the casino in Lincoln or at Horseman's Park in Omaha. That's 6303 Q Street. They've got all the kiosks and sports tellers you could possibly want to take your wagers, or you can get on the app, build your bet there. Go scan the QR code and place your bet live at the casino on pretty much every major sporting event. Straight bets, parlays, props, live in-game bets, all accepted. Go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or the Warhorse Casino app for all the details and a full list of house rules. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. The best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. And we are working on getting our friend Brian Edwards, got some picks for the weekend. As we do every week, Andrew and I will make our bets or our picks for the week tomorrow on a big football Friday. But kind of going back to the Hurrdat hot seat questions here while we're waiting on B, Shane brought up the the Gladiator helmet. I can't believe I didn't think of that one.
Yep, that's a good one.
That's a huge.
And then
miss on my
Rocky's
part.
equipment, huh?
Yeah, Rocky's like gloves or shorts would be a huge one as well. Totally forgot about those. It's on the spot. It's kind of, I feel bad for Shane and Shane's world when we put him on the spot like that. Sometimes it's tricky to.
I don't.
Well, yeah, I don't actually feel bad for him. But
and we've got Brian here as a matter
of
fact.
Great.
We are joined now by our friend Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. B, what's going on, man?
Repping the Gators. What's up, B?
Oh, I think you're on mute.
Can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
My favorite thing ever is when he starts scrambling. He's like a batch of eggs.
How about that? No?
Oh, there we go. Rocking your Gators gear, I see this week.
Oh, we lost you now.
Yep, we lost you again, B.
We had you. We lost you.
I'm not sure.
I saw what you mouthed. Can't hear you. No. He goes, oh.
I think did we
I'm
find it?
I'm like a famous lip reader.
I was muted on StreamYard, and I
There
didn't have it maximized.
We go.
We are live. How you doing?
Not very good. I'm late, and I'm apologies.
That's all right. Everybody gets a little discombobulated.
You know what?
Sometimes.
You can make up for it by giving us some wins.
Yeah, let's get some winners here. Starting in tonight's NFL game, Ravens and Bengals. You like some of the totals in this one?
Yeah, so I think my favorite is Baltimore's team total to go over 24.5. So the Ravens have scored 31, 37, 31, and 38 in their last 4 games. In week 2 at Cincinnati, they scored 27. And Sam Hubbard, one of the best pass rushers for the Bengals, is out tonight. And without him last week, and Trey Hendrickson is going to play. He's been upgraded to probable, but he left last week's game. And, so he might be less than 100% tonight. But without Hubbard and Hendrickson for most of the game last week, they weren't getting much pressure on Stroud. And, we saw Houston score 30. So I'm going to go Baltimore team total over 24.5. For those that might not be able to play team totals, I'm also on over 46 for the game. I know the under in these primetime games is absolutely on fire. I think it's 11 in a row, but they combined for 51 last time. Weather's not going to be an issue tonight. Low temperatures in the upper 40s, minimal wind, no wind, obviously no snow. The over's 3-1 in Baltimore's last 4, 3-2 in the Bengals' last 5. Bengals are ranked 30th in the NFL in both run defense and total defense. So I like it over, but I think my favorite is Baltimore's team total over 24.5, and not against Baltimore's team total over 12.5, but it's kind of juiced. I wouldn't lay like a minus 140 or anything of that nature.
Now, B, I think those unders have been hitting because let's just call it how it is. The competition level, the competition level going into those games weren't very great. Defensively, they were great, but
we've had the Jets in primetime a lot. We've had the Jets in primetime a lot,
which looked great coming into the season with Aaron Rodgers. Not so much anymore. Let's get into some college plays this weekend. We'll start on Friday. You like Colorado plus 4.5. Last week, I was hammering Arizona to just kick the living stew out of Colorado, and Colorado still made it a game. They actually got it all the way to 3. I think it was a 3-point finish there. So you are favoring Colorado once again against Washington State.
Yeah, so Colorado has lost 4 in a row outright, but they've covered 3 in a row. No shame in losing on a walk-off field goal to red-hot Arizona. No shame in a 7-point loss to Oregon State. And Washington State's reeling even more so. They've lost 6 in a row, 1-5 ATS in that stretch. The only cover is a 19.5-point underdog at Oregon when they lost by 14. So Wazoo got off to a 4-0 start. Cam Ward had 13 touchdown passes without an interception in those 4 games. But in the 6-game losing streak, he's got a 7-5 TDI-INT ratio. Wazoo is number 112 in pass defense. I think Shedeur Sanders has a big game. I like Colorado plus 4.5. And not against just a baby play on the money line. I think Colorado's got a great chance to win outright.
Brian, you've got your Gators again this week. They're playing Mizzou. Mizzou is an 11-point favorite. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, let's fade my Gators. Missouri 5-1 straight up at home. This year, their last 2 home games, they beat Tennessee 36-7, South Carolina 34-12. They are 7-1 ATS in their last 8. The only non-cover, they had a 4-point lead with less than 4 minutes left as a 6.5-point home dog to LSU, but LSU got a touchdown and then a kind of fluky pick 6 in the final minute. Florida 1-3 straight up in ATS in 4 road games. They lost by 17 at LSU, 19 at Kentucky, 13 at Utah, and even the one win and spread cover against South Carolina, they were down 10 with less than 5 minutes left. And Gators just really struggling here down the stretch. They gave up more yards to LSU last week than any game in program history spanning more than 100 years of college football. I think Missouri wins by at least 14. And to a lesser extent, I like the over. The over sitting 6 straight for Florida. Combined scores in the last 4 of 87, 75, 63, and 80. Florida's dead last in America in giving up explosive plays of 40 yards or more. They've given up 21 of those. Missouri's produced 14 of those to rank 28th nationally. And look, Mertz is playing outstanding, 18-2 TDI&T ratio. Both the running backs, Johnson and Etienne, are healthy, averaging 5.9 and 5.1 yards per carry. Pearsall and Eugene Wilson are playing great at receiver. And Brady Cook and Luther Burden, Cody Schrader, Theo Weiss, they're going to light Florida's defense up. So I like the over. I like Missouri more so, minus the 11-ish.
One of the biggest games of the weekend in the Pac-12, Oregon State at home hosting Washington. Washington 10-0 on the year and an underdog. And I feel like Washington kind of borders that underdog line more times than not. You like the home team here. You're going with the 10th ranked Beavers. Why?
Yeah, so they are 17-1, both straight up and against the spread in their last 18 at home. The only outright loss by 3 to USC last year. Oregon State's won their home games this season by margins of 45, 12, 14, 17, and 48. Washington mired in a 1-5 ATS slump. They've played 6 straight games decided by 10 points or fewer. The margins of victory in their last 6 have been 7, 3, 8, 9, 10, and 7. So they've had 6 straight games that have pretty much gone to the wire. That's a lot of tough games. And now here on the 7th, they're going into a venue, and I think it's going to be bad weather. I think that favors the Beavers with their running game. Damian Martinez, Deshaun Fenwick, the backup's really good. He should play at South Carolina. So not only do I think Oregon State wins and covers the small number, I think they're going to put it on them. I think they win by 14 to 21 points.
Interesting. B, you've got one more NFL play you like this week. The Detroit Lions playing some really good football right now. The Chicago Bears, well, we don't need to talk about them too much.
Thank you.
But the Lions they're currently a 7.5-point favorite. I know you like that if you're able to buy that number down a little bit.
Yeah, let's buy that half point to 7. And it probably only costs minus 120, whereas we're normally buying to like 3, and we might get an expensive price. But Detroit is, well, first off, they're 6-1 straight up in ATS in their last 7, regardless of venue. They've won 3 in a row at home by margins of 12 to the Raiders. Should have won that game by 4 touchdowns. Run by 18 to the Panthers, won by 14 on the Falcons. And, during this 6-1 run, even whether at home or away, 5 of those wins by 12 or more. And the Bears stink. I don't think Fields is 100% healthy. Let's go Lions minus 7. And look, if you're a teaser guy or a money line parlay guy, I think Detroit's automatic in a teaser or money line parlay if you go that route.
Let's hope the Lions win by 14 because the Bears need to keep that good draft stock, that good draft position.
Brian Edwards, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, fellas, y'all have a good one. Thanks.
All right, let's go make some money. That's Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Sports Radio. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Ruiz is drive to deep left field, just looking up is Padu, and it is gone. That's Theory Ruiz with his fifth home run of the year. RBIs 45 and 46, and the A's take a 2-1 lead.
Welcome back for hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We are live on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for hour number 3, we're on KFOR in Lincoln. But we are always brought to you by our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. They've got 4 great Omaha area locations, and they have been a part of the Omaha community for over 25 years, and they've been first place Best of Omaha for 18 years running. It's because they are family-owned and operated, and they invest in the latest technology to work on all makes and models, and they invest back in their community with every car repaired. Make sure you go check out dingmans.com.
I'm going today
for more information on their services and their give back program. Yeah. Andrew got a little dinged up.
I'm getting my
earlier.
estimate today. I'll let you guys know how the process works over at Dingman's. I'm going to the Papillion location.
Okay. I'm sure it'll be terrific. They've always been great to us. We appreciate Dingman's being a supporter of the show. Another supporter of the show, at least I'm going to tell myself that, is our friend Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntz, what's going on, buddy?
Well, we'll see how today goes and if that works or not. But things are going well. How are you guys doing?
Good. We're doing all right. We kind of wanted to do a wellness check on you here real quick because your Oakland A's are officially relocating. How are you doing? How you feeling?
I'm angry. John Fisher, the reclusive Gap Jeans heir who owns the A's currently, apparently met with protesters yesterday, guys. He met with the people. He met with 3 protesters in Texas and said that this has been harder on him than it's been on the fans.
Oh, poor me. Oh,
yeah. That is not being able to read the room. Come on, my guy.
Yeah.
So
billionaire jeans heir. This has been really hard on him.
I know it's tougher.
Hopefully this news makes everything better. His holidays go well, and he can sleep a little better at night.
Do you think they changed their name? Because Ravi tossed that out, and I'm like, they better not change their name.
I don't know. There was some talk that as part of because they have nowhere to play from 2025 to 2028 at least. And so if they have to go begging back to the city of Oakland to let them play there for a couple of years, which I don't know that they'll do, but there was talk that they were, as terms of extending the lease would be that he'd have to leave the name in Oakland. So
kind of like a Browns situation there.
Guys, don't do it to me. I need the A's in baseball.
Well, you might get them. There's always expansion.
The rebirth of the A's in Oakland, maybe
with more money.
So are you going to follow the team to Vegas? Are you cutting yourself off, or are you finding a new team? What's next for Michael Bruntz's baseball fandom?
TBD. I might need to pivot to CPBL, which, as you guys know, is the Taiwanese professional baseball league. So I might lean hard into the Brothers Elephants. I don't know if you guys know that team, but they're a decent team there in Taiwan. So
I'm more of a Tokyo Swallows fan in the Japanese professional league.
Okay.
I got really into the KBO during COVID because it was the only thing playing. So me and my friends would bet on the KBO during COVID. So I might, I'd look into the KBO too.
It's not bad because you basically wake up and there's baseball. So I'm not sure what pirated stream I have to do to get. Maybe I need to befriend somebody in Taipei and they can just FaceTime me from the game.
You got to find a TikTok account that streams those things live.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you can find them. And I think they're probably less stringent about it than they are for American sports.
Oh, that's good to know. I need to do some more research here, but I'm taking a break from Major League Baseball. I think is probably the fair way to say it.
Well, Bruntz, you seem like the type of guy that takes advantage of anything and everything on a streaming platform. Maybe Peacock this last week. Did you take advantage of everything Peacock had to offer? Because I feel like you did, and please tell me I'm right.
Let me tell you guys, I was not prepared for the amount of old school WWF content that is contained on Peacock. Everybody knows that the English Premier League is on there. That's your jam. You can watch some West Ham on there if you need to. But yeah, they've got 40 years worth of Royal Rumbles on there, and we've been I say we, I mean me, has been going back through some classic Royal Rumbles. We're actually today, the 95 Rumble is on the docket today.
I can just imagine. Well, first of all, I chuckled because I know your wife a little bit. Now I couldn't really imagine her watching Royal Rumbles there with you. But I can't imagine the Husker 24/7 crew just kind of sitting watching some 95 so WWF. So that was a fun picture for me. I appreciate you doing that. But as you as
Speaking of Royal Rumble,
yes. Yeah, I don't. Speaking of Royal Rumbles, Nebraska and Wisconsin this weekend. No, let's go. Let's look back to Maryland first before we move on to Wisconsin here. And obviously, the turnovers are the major story. The quarterbacks are the major story. But I want to, we've talked a lot about those this week. I want to pick your brain a little bit here and see, is there something else that stuck out to you, positive or negative, that maybe hasn't gotten enough attention this week because quarterbacks are the big sexy headline?
I don't know. I mean, I think Emmett Johnson continues to improve. I mean, I think that's noteworthy as you get into the final two games here. What do you have, like 17 carries, and he was getting close to 100 yards.
84, I think he ended up with.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that picture is looking good. I mean, I think, the running back group has been a bit of a mash unit this year. And to have your guy that was fourth on the depth chart kind of step up and take that role and run decisively, I mean, I think it looks pretty good there. That was a positive, I thought. I mean, the defense, again, played well enough to win. There was some, question about how well they played against Michigan State and if it was good enough. And I thought that they answered the bell again and again against a pretty good Maryland offense. So those things kind of stand out, I think, as positives that you can take in the last two games of the season. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to not come out of that game and not be talking quarterbacks and, again, just the turnover issues. I mean, if you're Nebraska's defense, you get three takeaways in that game, and to still end up -2, you're like, what's going on here? Like, what more can we possibly do to make this work?
Bruntz, well, let's stay right there and talk about those quarterback issues. How complicated is this situation for you to dissect going forward, knowing that Harburg has what could be a long-term ankle injury? You have Chuba that's dealing with a groin injury, although it seems like he's still taking reps and could play. Jeff Sims is the healthy guy in the room. Do you think Chuba brought enough to the table last week to give you confidence he'd be the starting guy this week?
Well, I mean, he did enough that you kind of at least are thinking, okay, what can we maybe do with this here? And I know he's been limited with the groin injury. I mean, that's going to be an issue over the last couple games. But I think with what we've seen from Jeff Sims, and even at times against Maryland, I thought that they were calling a pretty good game with him. He was making some okay throws and some smart decisions, and then the bottom just falls out. And I think this is a team now where you almost just need to say who's going to turn the ball over the least amount of times for us on offense. I mean, that it's not a question of explosive plays and all that other stuff, but who can manage this? Who can, allow us to run most of our offense? And I think right now, based on that drive, I mean, I think Chuba Purdy probably deserves a little bit of consideration there, and I think he will. I think he's got a pretty good chance of starting on Saturday. I just think that right now, if Heinrich Harburg is severely limited with his ability to run, he doesn't bring a ton to the table for you or worry you if you're Wisconsin's defense. And I just don't know right now mentally where Jeff Sims is at to where you could throw him out there in a night game on the road and expect it to look any different. I mean, you're just kind of signing yourself up for a bit of a high wire act there. And that's just, this team cannot overcome that. So that's why I think you probably default a little bit to Purdy and see what he can do for you.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7. Bruntz, on the offensive line, I thought from my eye test that, which take that for what you will, I thought the offensive line had their best game of the season. Rule seemed to echo that thought in his press conference this week. Is that something that maybe you think has been overshadowed by everything else going on, that the offensive line has low-key turned out to be pretty functional?
Yeah, they have been. And, I think you have to give credit to the guys on the left side of that line for stepping in and just playing sound football. Teddy's finally healthy. He's finally, right mentally. I know that's the confidence thing with him coming off of all the injuries that he's had have long been an issue, but he seems like he's in a good place. Justin Evans-Jenkins might be kind of the unsung hero on that offensive line. I mean, a guy that can come in and play guard or center pretty seamlessly and has done pretty well at that spot. I think whenever you're talking offensive line and at the end of the game, you're not saying, man, those guys were terrible or they really hurt us. I mean, I think that's a good sign. And, Nebraska certainly has other bigger issues on the roster, but, they've moved guys well enough up front. I thought that at the end of the game against Maryland, I mean, you could kind of see a little bit of the sum of the runs that they'd had throughout the game. And, you've got Nuri on the other side that's, probably still 2 weeks ahead of where he was supposed to be with that knee injury, playing pretty well. So, yeah, I mean, I think the progress there has been noteworthy. It's just, been overshadowed by everything else that you have to fix on that side of the ball, which is unfortunate because, coming into the season, the conversation was offensive line, and they've been, quietly pretty steady.
Bruntz, obviously big news coming out of Iowa City yesterday. Cooper DeJean's injury, season ending for him, which is it's something you never want to wish on a player, and you got to feel for Cooper with the season he was having and where he could go in the draft next year. But, it is what it is, and it sort of kind of plays into Nebraska's hand a little bit because he was the heart and soul of that Iowa team, and I don't want to skip too far ahead here. But if Nebraska can pull off a win against Wisconsin and get that 6W, secure that bowl spot, how much easier in your mind do you think it is to also secure possibly a Big Ten championship trip because of how Iowa faltered last year without Cooper DeJean in their lineup against Nebraska?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and Iowa obviously, was pretty challenged offensively enough as it is, and you take one of their best playmakers, everywhere basically on their roster out of the equation. That doesn't help. I shudder to think a little bit about what that game is going to look like in Lincoln on next week. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean maybe not funny is the right word, but things have, like, outside of Nebraska's control, have lined up really well for Nebraska this season. And I think that's kind of a little bit of the frustrating part in some ways is, you came into the year thinking, okay, just get to a bowl game. But I mean, you've played two teams that had interim head coaches. Most of the opponents that you've played this year, for whatever reason, when you played them, have had quarterback health issues, or they've been missing major pieces of their offense, and you just haven't been able to get it done. So, yeah, I mean, I'm expecting just a slug it out, just ugly football game on Friday, and certainly taking away one of the few dynamic playmakers Iowa has is not going to help there. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, doesn't it just feel like every conversation about Nebraska for the last month has been basically, can Nebraska stay out of its own way? Because I think they've got the defense and consistent enough special teams to win these kinds of games, as long as the offense can not keep blowing its toes off.
Bruntz, let's change our attention to this week's game against Wisconsin, a team that just even a few weeks ago seemed like a pretty daunting task going up to Madison. Not that going on the road at night at Madison is any easier this week, but with the state of where Wisconsin's at this season, how are you feeling going into that game compared to how you were thinking about this game a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, to listen to some of the quotes coming out of the game last week, I mean, it was a little bit of a therapy session. It felt like. I mean, it felt like a lost team, a group that doesn't really have a good sense of its identity on either side of the ball. I mean, it's really strange to hear that coming out of Wisconsin, right? Because you for years have been able to just count on, regardless of the coach, this is what they're going to be, this is what they're going to do, and they're not that this year. I mean, they're a team that can actually beat themselves and have. And so it's still a tough test, though. I mean, you got to go and do a pretty daunting place at night, a place you haven't won since you've been in the Big Ten, and kind of thread the needle enough to get it done. I mean, I think it's going to be a 4-quarter game. I just think that's what Nebraska is now, and we'll see if whomever the quarterback is can kind of do enough to help Nebraska win it. But yeah, it's even Braylon Allen playing a little bit last week didn't look at all like he should. The quarterback health issues. It's just it's a strange time in the Big Ten West, and maybe a good time to maybe kind of turn out the lights on the division, I guess, because this has been a hell of a run this year.
Bruntz, all that being said, should Wisconsin be 5-point favorites in this game?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's even come down from what it was. I mean,
it started at 7.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it at 3.5 some places. And so, yeah, it's a coin flip, with it being at home for Wisconsin. I think that's probably fair. I mean, I don't know that I think it's probably tough week to week to really feel strongly about what you're going to get from either of these teams. So, I don't think recency bias being what it is, I don't think you feel really great about what either team did last week. So, I guess maybe you get the little advantage because you're at home, but we'll see if Wisconsin did enough soul searching this week during practice to get things going in the right direction there.
Bruntz, on the defensive side of the ball, I know we've talked a lot about the offense because of how, I guess dramatic it's been over there. But on the defensive side of the ball, they have been dealing with some injuries, although not to the same extent as the offense. I guess, do you have any level of concern just with kind of the moving parts back there? I know we kind of take it for granted at this point in the season, but I do like to do check-ins every once in a while, just be like, we're still good here, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of how I feel, but I'm curious how you think about it.
Yeah, I think Nebraska's just kind of steady. I think Marquise Buford coming back when he did came at a pretty good time. They were a little bit thin in the secondary with some of the safety depth. They're certainly missing Deshaun Singleton a lot, but I think he's kind of come in and filled that gap a little bit. Nebraska's had their issues in the secondary with the double moves. I mean, that's I think pretty well known now. That's how you get Nebraska's corners. I think they were missing Quentin Newsom a lot last week in that game. It sounds like he's going to be back, so that's at least a positive there. But I'm trying to think back if there's been a matchup with Wisconsin where you felt kind of this confident that Nebraska's front seven would be able to hang in there and really hold up well against Wisconsin and maybe even kind of win the battle along the line of scrimmage. I mean, I just think that's the high level of play that Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher are playing at now. I mean, with Robinson, you're kind of seeing that, like, I know he's still got a year if he wants it, but that kind of final kick towards the end of a guy's career where he's just kind of playing lights out. And, I think that bodes well. I think, that this is a Nebraska defense that can get pressure on Wisconsin if they get them into 3rd and long. So, I mean, that's the only reason I really have a ton of confidence that they're going to be able to go up there and, really hang with Wisconsin and maybe pull out a win. Is just that defense is that good. And, Wisconsin's offense is not playing great football right now. And you saw last week that, that they can be shut down. And I think Nebraska's got a better defense than what Northwestern's got. So we'll see how they hold up.
Bruntz, last thing from me. Let's take advantage of your recruiting information for a second if we can. I've seen new offers, new commitments pop up in recent days from Nebraska. What's the latest on the recruiting trail that's noteworthy, if anything, and maybe even give our listeners a little insight on how Nebraska's been attacking the quarterback position as far as recruitment goes past Danny Kaelin?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything in 24 and somebody that's going to be on the roster next year, it's going to be a portal situation. We had an article on our site this week about, kind of looking forward with the 25 class and Alex Mansky, quarterback from Iowa that I believe has visited Nebraska 7 times maybe, since he got his offer in the summer. And Nebraska, I think he's a guy to kind of watch for the future for Nebraska, because Nebraska was one of the first to identify him. They offered very early. Michigan's come in late, Tennessee's kind of hanging around. Certainly Iowa and Iowa State are around there, but he's probably going to be making a decision towards the end of his, towards the end of the fall here. I think Nebraska's in a good spot there to maybe land him. But I think that's kind of where their energy with the high school stuff is focused right now. I mean, I can't imagine how you don't go into the portal once that opens and find a guy or two to kind of beef up that quarterback room. You have to. So beyond that, I think one visit to watch, Carlon Jones, Nebraska's defensive line commit out of Bay City, Texas, is visiting Ohio State this weekend. That's one to watch because Nebraska was in on him early too. He's really had a great senior season, a lot of interest from schools in Texas. Ohio State offered a couple weeks ago. He's going to go check that out there. He's a guy that would be a great piece for Nebraska's recruiting class to hang on to. He's probably, we do the Super Six every year with the recruiting classes. I think he would be a mainstay in a lot of people's Super Six. So that's a visit to watch there too. But, Nebraska continuing to kind of in 24 hit the same guys. I mean, Grant Bricks, the offensive lineman in Iowa, is making a Kansas State visit. That's been a recruitment that's gone on and on and on. We'll see when he makes a decision, but Nebraska continues to recruit him hard, and we'll kind of see where that plays out.
It's Michael Bruntz for Husker 24/7. Bruntz, we appreciate your time as always, and I wish you condolences on your baseball team.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to go light a candle.
Yeah, go watch more Peacock.
Yeah.
Go watch some Royal Rumbles. Bruntz, we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
That's our friend Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Coming up next, we've got part 2 of Hurrdat Hot Seat here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Coming up next, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio. I'm Ravi Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me as well. We're live from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill and the H&H Chevrolet stage. And we are brought to you by our friends at Pratt Dental. Pratt Dental is located in North Platte, Nebraska, and they've got Dr. Pratt, who was the first dentist in Nebraska certified on the BioClear method. The BioClear method of modern smile design can correct many aesthetic dilemmas in a permanent and less invasive manner than traditional treatments such as crowns. It's less invasive, less time, less waiting, and fewer appointments. You can have multiple restorations done in the same day. Give Pratt Dental a call, 308-221-2800. It's time now to return to that Hurrdat hot seat.
Let's do it.
As we, I think we only got one question in each last time.
That is true.
So
seems like
that's a pretty
something that happens with us.
Yeah, it's a pretty common theme here as we like to get a little chatty, but that's okay. You seemed very excited about a question, so I'm going to let you go first again.
I did, and I am. So my question for you is this.
Okay.
And I'll explain it before I ask the question.
All right.
So in light of the Cooper DeJean injury news, it had me thinking about where he could go next year in the NFL draft.
Okay.
At first, if you look at most recent mock drafts, the Bills seem like a likely landing spot at 17.
Okay.
But because of the injury,
Maybe
that
drops
could
a little bit.
scare some NFL teams and force Cooper to drop a little bit in the draft. There is a team that sits around 27 and 28 at the moment that was also rumored to pick him up. Actually, 2 PFF insiders have him landing here, and that's the San Francisco 49ers.
That was going to be my next team.
How would you feel about the 49ers drafting Cooper DeJean in the first round to round out that secondary? And would you, like, on the FranCon meter that we discussed yesterday, would you be a FranCon 9, calm, excited about it? Or would you be a FranCon 1, hot, they shouldn't make that? Or where would you fall if Cooper DeJean ended up on the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, I think I'd be pretty pleased with it. The secondary,
I don't know how you would.
Couldn't
be pleased.
Right, yeah. The secondary for the 49ers has been kind of their only question mark on that defensive side of the ball for the last couple years. Obviously, they addressed some additional pass rush help with Chase Young at the trade deadline, which by default makes your defensive secondary look a little better, feel a little better by putting pressure on the quarterback all the time. But that's the place where they need, maybe the only real place that they need help on that entire roster. Maybe a little, in later rounds, I'd like to maybe see them address some offensive line depth. But man, Cooper DeJean would be a great get. He's a playmaker, obviously, a great player in the secondary there. I'd
be return punts.
Yeah, I'd be thrilled about it. I don't have any hesitations about a Cooper DeJean draft pick there.
Now, what if I change the prompt, knowing all that you just said? I got you all excited. Is Cooper DeJean more likely to go to the NFL or back to Iowa because of the timing of the injury? And now this is also a question that Dave prompted in my brain on YouTube, because I have a thought on it, but I want you to go first.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with what happens with Iowa football. I don't know. I'm still wondering if Kirk Ferentz is back next year. And I think that will impact Cooper DeJean's decision. I don't know if he comes back. Cooper comes back. I don't know if he leaves. Maybe Cooper sees who gets hired, that type of thing. Because you do have a little bit of time after the season to make your NFL declarations. So we would have some time to see that all play out. But that to me is going to be the biggest variable here for Cooper, and less so the injury. Because from what I'm reading, and I could be wrong, this doesn't seem like one of those that you would expect to be a career-altering injury. Like, yes, it's the rest of the season.
I mean, think about Nick Chubb right now.
Yeah.
He broke every bone in his right leg.
And this isn't even like
he's going to come back next year and play, it seems.
Yeah, this doesn't seem to be like one of those like Achilles deals that are kind of more dramatic than, like, it's an injury. He's out for the rest of the season. But for me, I'm not worried about him long-term. So I would imagine NFL teams are kind of in that same boat, unless something weird crops up between now and then that we can't foresee. But so I think the injury has less to do with his decision to come back, and it'll be more to do with what the situation Iowa is in next year with the coaching and everything like that. Because I still don't think it's out of the question that Kirk Ferentz leaves.
So I think it's an instant, no doubt, you go to the draft anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
And this could be a real thing to think about and come maybe at the perfect time for Cooper to make that decision easier. You don't want something to happen again next year. You don't want to just wait your turn in college football just because you want to finish out whatever it is. Like, if you can graduate and, do all those things and leave early, like, that's ideal. But even still, if you can't, there's no harm in going back to college later and or finishing up school while you're playing in the NFL somewhere, somehow. So if you don't worry too much about like the worry about taking that next step at the wrong time, and you just do it when he's a first round pick. You're not, if he was a third round pick, maybe you go back to college.
Yeah, it's a different
but he's a first round pick. So you just make that leap now. Yes, it's a leg injury. I was told it's his foot. Dave says the report is his femur. I don't really know exactly what the injury is.
Yeah, no one really does, right? They're
Leg
just saying
injuries.
lower
Now,
leg.
obviously, those two injuries would differ from recovery time.
Yeah.
Foot injury would probably be about 3-4 months, I would guess.
Depends on what it is.
Which would get him in line for the combine. I would say 6 months max on a foot injury. I'm not sure on a femur injury. That could be a little more long-term. But it's better to have a break than it is a tear because the break seems to heal much quicker.
Yeah.
Although, and it just seems like he doesn't even need to be at the combine to be a first-round pick.
No, I wouldn't think so. And yeah, the thing, I mean, I think it can vary pretty widely just based on what it is. Like, if you've got like a Liz Frank in the foot, those can linger on for a really long time because you don't have good blood flow to the area. So it doesn't heal consistently the way some of these other injuries do. So it's just, I mean, without them giving us a ton of details on it, it's just really hard to tell recovery-wise.
And knowing Cooper, it's not about the money. And he could make a lot of money staying in college with NIL deals. It's not about the money for him. His dream was to always make it to the NFL. It was to be an Iowa Hawkeye and then make it to the NFL. So knowing those things, it wouldn't shock me if he just took that leap because he's going to hit his goal. In the dream. He did his dream at Iowa. Now it's time to make that leap to the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll stick with college football for my hot seat question as well. Let's take hometown out of it. So take, obviously you're from St. Louis, you live in Nebraska. So take those considerations out of it of like, oh, I'd like to be close to home. What job in college football is the most appealing to you? So you can consider location for like weather, stuff like that, but don't just be like, I want to go to Missouri because it's closer to home.
Right.
What job is most appealing?
Man.
Because I'm thinking about things like
the Big Ten
resources
and resources.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about
SEC
resources.
money. And
I'm thinking
where
about
they're at.
location in terms.
Am I the head coach?
Yeah, you're the head coach, so you're going to get good money. But I'm thinking about how easy is it to win there? Recruiting base. I'm thinking about how much would it be? How nice would it be to like? I kind of understand Lincoln Riley wanting to not live in Norman, Oklahoma anymore. I don't know if you've ever been to Norman, Oklahoma. It is kind of a tough hang.
Right.
And, so like if you're more of a big city guy, LA makes a lot of sense there.
Well, they got a lot of kids there or something?
Definitely not a big city guy. A couple of schools stand out. The first one's LSU.
Okay, yeah, that'd be a fun one.
That's one it's down south. It's warm. I like to be around warm weather than cold weather.
Me too.
So
yeah.
That's the first one for me. Another one would be Miami.
Miami would be a fun job.
And that's just more because it's kind of a crazy town.
Yeah.
It's a touristy area, but knowing like how much people care about Miami sports down there too, I think would be really exciting. Those would be the first two that instantly hit me.
I do think Miami's a little bit harder of a job than people realize because of the infrastructure around the athletic program isn't quite as good, but all the peripheral stuff in terms of lifestyle and stuff like that, Miami would be a terrific job.
Yeah. The last one I think I would say, well, selfishly it'd be like Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I would love to coach the Hawaiian football team and live in Honolulu and go nuts there. So I'm just a warm weather guy. So put me somewhere south.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. The only one I would toss in there also is I kind of feel like I know it gets really hot there. I wouldn't hate Arizona State. Like warm weather, pretty good location.
Sure.
I think it's a reasonably easy job to win at. People just haven't been very good there. I don't know, but I agree with some of yours as well. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk some national college football with our guy Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel.
We will be back. We will be back.
From the 8, and the give is to Harvey's across the 10, 15, RJ 20. He's free 25, 30. Go RJ 35, 40, 45 to the 50. He's got room to the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, RJ Harvey, 92 yards. Boom.
We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
From the 8, and the give is to Harvey's across the 10, 15, RJ 20. He's free 25, 30. Go RJ 35, 40, 45 to the 50. He's got room to the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, RJ Harvey, 92 yards. Boom.
We're wrapping up the show here this morning on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. Shout out to my guy Alex chiming in from Holdridge, listening in Holdridge, Nebraska.
All right.
Our friends out there in central Nebraska. We love to hear from you as we work through the show. Joining us now as we wrap up the show here on a Thursday is Matt Murschel. He covers college football for the Orlando Sentinel. Matt, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good. We are doing well. We appreciate you joining us. It's a busy week in college football, several top 25 matchups. One relatively close to your neck of the woods in the SEC is going to get a lot of attention, Georgia and Tennessee. I'm curious how you feel about the Bulldogs this year. I thought they seemed vulnerable earlier in the season, but they really seem to have been getting their feet under them as of late. Have we gotten to the point where knocking off Georgia seems like a mightier and mightier task every week?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that when you think about how Georgia's performed. You know, they've had their ups and downs this season, and as I told someone the other day, you know, it's difficult to win 3 straight national championships, obviously. So there was going to be a challenge for Kirby Smart, going into this season. And I think part of that challenge early on was keeping his players up week in and week out. You're the number one team in the country. You got to keep your players kind of feeling that there's something to play for. And I know it sounds crazy to say that, but sometimes players get lax and don't put in the extra time in the weight room, or don't maybe do the extra things they needed to do and that they've done in the past. So I think they've kind of gotten the wake-up call early in the season, and they've performed. Now, I don't think they're nearly as impossible to beat as they were maybe 2 years ago, but it's going to be tough for them to have it. And, going against Tennessee, Tennessee obviously is nowhere near as dominant, as they look like last year. So I think that's going to be the challenge. I think Georgia doesn't face its biggest opponent until they get to Alabama in the SEC championship game. And I think that's going to be the one that really kind of tests to see how good this Georgia team really was this season.
Matt, I know you're a UCF guy. I told people to take the Knights last week, plus 2.5 against Okie State. Hopefully people listened. I just felt they were due for that UCF blowout win. It seems like one always comes every year, and that's the game that it happened. And plus I kind of have this weird admiration for John Reese Plumlee. I don't know where that stems from. It's just there too. How big was that win though for this UCF team in terms of their bowl hopes?
Well, it was huge, obviously. They're hanging on that, they're hanging in that really precarious situation where, they needed to get 2 wins in the last 3 games to be bowl eligible. If they didn't get that win against Oklahoma State, I think it's going to be almost nearly impossible for them to get those final 2 wins against, Texas Tech and Houston. But now you get that blowout win against the number 15 team in the country. You have a lot of buzz, a lot of momentum. You just got to avoid a letdown this weekend. You go on the road to Texas Tech, a team that's obviously coming off its own blowout win. I guess not blowout win, but coming off its own big win against Kansas last week. So your UCF, you really only need 1 win in the last 2 games to be bowl eligible. That's not how UCF is thinking. They want to win the last 2 games, and they would like to finish 7-5 and go from there and finish strong. It would be nothing better for this program to get together maybe a 4-game winning streak to wrap up, the season, compared to where they went through that stretch where they had lost 5 in a row. So it's not been the season they thought it was going to be in the Big 10 or Big 12, but again, this is the challenge right now. Is you're moving to a Power 5 conference, you're facing opponents who have maybe recruited a little better, recruited a little stronger. The offensive defensive lines are a little bigger, a little faster, and UCF's going to get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, Matt, I'm a little curious about that transition into the Big 12, because as I look at the newcomers in the league, and we're going to see more and more of this as the conferences continue to realign. Obviously, a big chunk of teams from the Pac-12 coming in next year, both to the Big 10 and Big 12. But as I look at the teams that are new to the Big 12 this year, nobody is better than 2-5 in conference. What in your mind has been the biggest challenge, not necessarily just for UCF, but for all these teams making that transition from Group of 5 to Power 5? What's been the biggest challenge in making that leap that's led to some of these struggles?
Well, I think some of it is the depth. I think a lot of the Power 5 programs obviously have the resources and are able to get more players. The depth is a lot deeper. You've got players who are Power 5 depth at your number 2 and number 3, units. Whereas, for a lot of these other programs like UCF and Houston, Cincinnati, you didn't have that. Your second or third offensive line was nowhere near as strong as your first. Well, in the Big 12, I think your second unit is probably just as strong as your first. So I think depth has been an issue. I think identifying, it's a different type of player that you're recruiting. When you're in a G5 group, you're not going to get those 5-star kids most of the time. If you're lucky, you get some 4 stars, and then maybe you get a lot of 3 stars. Well, when you get to that Power 5 level, you're going to have to start getting some of those 5 and 4s. You're seeing that now with some of these programs and their recruiting trail. They're starting to get some of those guys. So I think that's where the time factor comes in. Eventually you're going to recruit better. And I also think it impacts the transfer portal. Now you're able to go to somebody and say, okay, we're playing in a Power 5 conference or Power 4, however you want to look at it next year. We're playing in this Power League. Come play for us, and it's going to have you're going to get a chance to play in national television all the time. So it's going to happen for these schools. Again, I think anytime you make a transition from a Group of 5 to a Power 5, you're just going to have a little bit of a bumpy road, and I think you've kind of seen that so far. And I'm not also going to discredit the fact that travel has been a big issue for some of these teams. They haven't necessarily had to go as far as they had in some of these cases, and it's put a lot of pressure on a smaller, weaker lineup sometimes.
Matt, looking at the updated college football playoff rankings, Georgia overtakes number 1 over Ohio State, despite the Buckeyes staying perfect. Michigan and FSU are still in the mix, knocking on the door. You got Washington, Oregon, Alabama. There's a couple of different things that pass through my mind. Say Florida State closes out the year undefeated. Say Washington also is, that team that stays undefeated most of the year, but then Oregon, beats them in the Pac-12 championship game. We'll just say Georgia beats Bama for the sake of this conversation. Mm-hmm. But do you think Florida State, in any scenario, it has their spot guaranteed if they finish the season undefeated? Because I still don't think they do.
I think it's going to be very close, guys. Let's put it that way. I mean, that's got to be a concern for a lot of Florida State fans, is because the fact that the ACC is not nearly as strong as it was at the beginning of the year in the last couple of years. There's some concern there. I mean, Florida State fans have got to be rooting hard for Louisville this weekend. They need Louisville to beat Miami, and they need them to look good doing it. They need both these teams to get to the ACC championship, and they need Florida State to get that win to get in there. I think it's very unlikely that the selection committee would leave out an undefeated conference champion for a Power 5. But again, let's see what happens with the Pac-12. Washington's going to finish with a much stronger schedule. You mentioned that. You look at who they play. They got a ranked opponent this weekend. They go Washington State, and then if they get to the Pac-12 championship, you're probably more likely playing Oregon. Oregon's going to be just right there as well. You look at their schedule. They've got finish up with a number 11 Oregon State. So it's a possibility. I mean, it's going to be one of those reasons that I'm sure the selection committee is really grateful that we're moving to a 12-team playoff next year, because you're getting a lot of scenarios. And I'm going to throw one at you guys right now. If Alabama beats Georgia and Georgia gets that one loss in the SEC championship game, and the selection committee is going to put the SEC champion in the top 4,
right?
How do you drop Georgia out of the top 4? I mean, they've been the number 1 team throughout most of the year. I mean, that would really throw a monkey wrench into all this stuff. So there are some scenarios where you're going to have a couple teams that are going to be really upset. A couple fan bases are going to be really upset at the end of the year because their team didn't make it in.
Yeah, Matt, you make a good point with Georgia there, although they're a little bit in that same boat as Florida State, where their schedule hasn't done them a ton of favors. So that'll be super interesting if they do take that loss to Alabama. But I did want to touch back on Washington for a second, talking about that 4th and 5th college football playoff ranking spot. Washington against Oregon State, the biggest game of the weekend, the most implications for the college football playoff for the weekend as well. And Washington goes into that as an underdog at Oregon State. What are you looking at in that game with kind of some clashing styles a little bit between the two teams?
Yeah, what you want to see is Washington see if they can get back to how they were early on in the season. They appeared to be pretty dominant on offense. They still have a very powerful offense, with Michael Penix, but defensively, they haven't been nearly as sharp as they've been in the past. I mean, they've struggled a little bit. They've given up a lot of points over the last 3 weeks. Particularly disturbing is that Stanford game where they had to come back to win that game. They gave up 33 points on that end. They've got to play better defense. That's just the thing. I think Oregon State's a really tough defensive-minded team. They're going to do their best to try to get this win. And what a job that John Smith has done. When you look at Oregon State, I mean, obviously he's put together a great program over the last couple of years. So for Washington, again, it goes back to they've got to play turnover-free football. They've got to do a better job on the defensive side of the football. They've got to be able to get some stops early on and let their offense kind of take over, because it's going to be a challenge. I mean, again, you're on the road. Winning on the road is really tough. And, Washington is in that spot where they're right there for a playoff spot, but losing to Oregon State would probably knock them obviously out of that.
That's Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel. Matt, we appreciate your time. We'll catch up again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Matt.
That's Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel, talking all things national college football. Appreciate his time as always. All right, that's all we have for today on a Thursday. Tomorrow, we've got another Football Friday jam-packed week. We've got high school at the start of next week with their state championships. We got Nebraska, of course, we got NFL. That's all coming up and more on Hurrdat Sports Radio on a Football Friday. We'll see you then.